I just see how much it's affecting our society in general, because I see it from an everyday basis, from the school system to somebody that's in a gym, to somebody that coaches college soccer, to somebody that's a father. And what I can tell you as an American, I know what's going on is wrong. And I'm just like, wow. Like I say to my kids, I said, good luck, because this is all going to fall apart at some point. You're gonna the chips have to be cashed in at some time.
What's cooking, everybody? If you are on YouTube right now, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button on the video, and as always, if you have a second, would love to see you drop a comment down in the video comment section as well. To everyone who has been leaving likes and comments on these videos, I say it every week, it's a huge help. Let's keep it coming. You guys are awesome. To everyone who is listening on Apple or Spotify right now, thank you for checking out the show there. If you haven't already, be sure to follow on either one of those platforms. And if you have a second, leave a 5-star review as well. And I look forward to seeing you guys again for future episodes. Now, I am joined in the bunker today by Mr. Don Palmucci. And this is an episode that, even in some public comments, but especially in DMs, people have been asking for, and the topic. And that is on the state of kids in this pandemic and everything that's been going on. Obviously, society's been flipped upside down. The youth, I would argue, is probably the most affected by that as far as their development with education and different social norms and stuff like that. And I've felt awful since the beginning of this thing for anyone who's still in any level of school, whether it be college kids who missed out on their college experience all the way down to kindergartners who are trying to integrate themselves into a social environment for the first time. And so Don does a lot, but Don's trade that he's had for a long time is he's a therapist, and specifically he's specialized in working with kids. And so he's also been in charge of a million programs within an actual school district as the therapist and a bunch of different titles. And I absolutely loved some of the things that he even did long before the pandemic as far as like leadership and mentoring kids and stuff like that. So he was a perfect guest to bring in. We had a great conversation around kind of where things stand with the effects of the pandemic and how it looks in the schools and where we're going with some of the restrictions now seeming to come up, knock on wood here. And we also talked a lot about, he's a great storyteller. So we talked a lot about different things that he's done over the years in the schools, and just, this was an episode all about the kids. So hope you guys enjoy. Really, really loved having Don in here. And that said, you know what it is. I'm Julian Dorey, and this is TRENDIFIER. Let's go! This is one of the great questions in our culture. Where is the nuance? You're giving opinions and calling them facts. You feel me? Everyone understands this, but few seem to do it. If you don't like the status quo, start asking questions.
Gym was chained shut.
The school gym?
The school gym, because no kids were allowed to train.
Isn't that nuts that in the pandemic, where we knew pretty early on, like any other disease or virus, whatever, the less in shape you were, the less equipped you were to deal with it. And yet the things that we shut down so heavily that we then continued to put all these restrictions on, including like you had to wear masks to go there and everything, are like the places where you fucking work out.
Yes.
It's insane.
Yes. Goes against any common sense.
Like because you work in the administration where you are.
Yes.
We're going to talk about everything you do today. I'm very excited to do this. But the politics of having to deal with that, to speak up and try to, let's call it what it is, make the most of a difficult situation where, especially the first 3-4 months, everyone's scared because you saw how society was. Mm-hmm. Even if there are people who kind of warmed up 2-3 weeks in, there's still a lot of people watching the news every day, listening to social media. Oh my God, everyone's going to die. And you got to sit there and be like, well, someone's got to have some common sense in this room to have this conversation. I guess it's got to be me. So how does that even go?
Well, what I can tell you is when you have a strong superintendent, which we do.
That's good.
And his first comment to the cabinet was that I don't want to hear what you can't do. I want to hear what you can do, and what do you need to do it? And that resonated through everybody. And that was the very beginning of the pandemic. And
he said that at the very beginning.
He said that at the very beginning. And, you know, Dr. Brodzik is just a very innovative, cutting-edge guy. I came in when he came in, and anything I needed, I just had to show why I needed it and what the purpose of it was. And if it was for the kids and it was for the good of the kids, I got it. And
that's awesome.
You couldn't work at a better place than that. When you got somebody that is willing to hear you and support you and support the kids. I mean, and that's what it really came down to. And I would imagine that, you know, when this came along, it was, you're right. Everybody was scared to death, you know, including me. I was like starting to question.
Oh,
people next to you.
Up here, yeah.
Yeah, you know, you're at Home Depot, and I'm like, do I have the right mask on? Like, he's a little close to me, and you know, your little anxiety sets in. So, but you know, in the same time, you have to educate kids, and the best way to educate kids is not, you know, online. It's proven.
No,
I mean, kids were struggling.
It's so bad. Who was paying attention?
Well, I mean, I think the schools had the best interest, but then I think the political side came in, and then when the political side got involved, then you had, you know, it became gray. The area became gray, and now you're fighting the political side of it, you know, and overall, I mean, what's best for the kids? Let's figure this thing out. What's best for the kids? And I will tell you, I mean, we were only shut down for 2 weeks, and I think it was just because that the county cases had risen, not because of the school cases. It was more because of the county, and the commitment was that we were going to be in-person learning.
Wait, you guys 2 weeks into the pandemic were in person?
Oh, we were in person pretty much the whole pandemic. We're one of the only schools
in New Jersey.
In New Jersey, I mean, there were some others, but a lot of schools went virtual, where we stayed in person.
Wait, I'm sorry, I did not know this.
Yeah.
We did not talk about this when we were going through some of this stuff. I thought in New Jersey, this wasn't even a question I was going to ask. I thought in New Jersey it was like a law. I mean, I don't have kids in school, so I'm not in it. I don't know. I thought it was like a law that for the rest of that 2020 year, that I guess 1920 year, when the pandemic hit in March, they had to all be virtual. I didn't even realize that some of these schools were still doing it in person.
Well, so what our administration did, you know, starting with our superintendent, he decided that he wanted to send out a survey to the parents and find out what they wanted. Did they want in person? Did they want virtual? Did they want hybrid? And so I thought it was genius.
That's amazing.
Genius. You know, put it in their court, because they're the ones that are going to be affected the most.
Yes.
They got to find daycare, babysitters, whatever they got to do, because they still have to work.
Yes.
And normally their children are in school while they're working. Now, if you send these kids home to do virtual and they got to go to work, who's going to take care of them? You know, so, and from a mostly blue collar town, which, you know, is Pennsville, you could see that most of those people understood that I got to make a living in this whole thing. Otherwise, I can't pay my rent. I can't pay my mortgage. And so the majority, and I forget what the statistics were, but it was pretty much, you know, sided towards they wanted kids in person.
And again, they were in jobs too, where a lot of those, you know, we're talking about essential frontline type jobs. Mm-hmm. It could be anything from even plumbing and stuff like that, where they got to be out on the road. You can't do that virtually.
No.
So they understood priorities.
Yes.
That is really interesting.
You know,
that your superintendent did that. You don't hear these stories, especially for New Jersey.
A very strong individual, I would say. I would say that, like I said, he does his research, you know, and he doesn't go, in my opinion, with what others are saying. He wants to know himself what's working, what's not working. I mean, I've had some great conversations with him. And I remember at a football game him talking about, his research, his thoughts, and what he thought about, where this thing was going and what he could do best for the kids, and I knew he was going to stay strong. And, what I can tell you is our kids were learning when a lot of kids may have been struggling.
Yeah.
With the virtual. Now, in my opinion,
pull that mic up just a little bit. Yeah.
In my opinion, I would say that the higher end of the spectrum of intelligence and kids that are doing well in school could handle virtual because they can self-teach. Sure. I would say the middle line and anybody that, needs, more support was going to struggle. And if you looked at the statistics, that's what you saw.
Yeah.
You saw these kids that they needed that one-on-one talk. They needed that teacher to come over and show them in person, this is what you need to do. That's really hard to do virtually. It's really hard to do.
It's not possible.
Yeah. And I would say that this, for education, was a big disaster, in my opinion. Big disaster. Because we didn't educate kids like we're supposed to educate kids for probably up to a year and a half.
We're at 2 years now, coming up on 2 years.
Yep.
So it's like the end of February now. And I guess I hit March 13th, 2020. So now you're talking 2 full years of school. And when you extrapolate that, you're not just looking at like critical years. All years of development are critical.
Yes.
So the 11th and 12th graders who lose their 11th and 12th grade years, I say lose, but let's say have severely less value out of those years, are now far iller equipped. I don't know if that's a word, but they're not great going into college.
Yeah.
The 9th and 10th graders never got a chance to adjust to high school.
Yes.
The 7th and 8th graders aren't going to be ready for high school. The 5th and 6th graders, they don't even know what middle school is.
Yeah.
And all the kids below that who are developmentally, I don't know what word I'm looking for, but when you are, say, below the age of 10, especially when you look at the science, kids are all about learning from their environment around them, and specifically the environment of what faces say to them when they're saying things, to learn social cues.
Social cues, yep.
So now, forget the education, and it was hilarious to me when they were doing like virtual. I had friends who were teachers, and they're teaching like kindergartners on virtual. Forget that.
Yeah.
These kids aren't together. They're alone at home. So down to the lowest levels, we're getting a generation of what's going to be like COVID babies, or like the COVID era, who are going to be far less equipped to deal with their fellow human being, which feels a little sketchy to me when you look at it and you see where our world's going. And, as I was telling you I think this was off camera before, but like, it's tough for adults. God damn. For kids, I can't even imagine. Can't even imagine being stuck in the middle of this.
Yeah. And I think you hit on the point, the social cues. And those early years are more important than anything, because the frontal cortex is just wanting to take information in. They're like little sponges, you know what I mean? And they learn so quick. As you get older, obviously, the learning curve slows down a little bit. And listen, it was K through 12 that struggled in this pandemic. Literally K through 12. I think what more important is you got to the social part. There was no socialization whatsoever. Now, as you go to middle school and high school, there's no clubs or activities. There was no sports. There was no proms, dances, all the things, the fabric of America that makes us such a strong nation is gone. I mean, my fondest memories are high school. Yeah, college was great. I love going back to my town, my former town, and riding my bike every year. I do it once a year.
Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in a town named Marsville, Pennsylvania. It's another river town, kind of like Pennsville.
Got it.
I just, small school, loved it. Probably didn't love it as much then as I do now, looking back. But
funny how that works.
Yeah. And just the experiences I had in that small town. You played both ways in football. The wrestling team needed everybody, that type of thing. And, the memories of being involved in activities are the most impressionable memories still in my head.
Right.
I still talk to all the guys on my wrestling team. I had my one buddy came out to a big tournament that my son was in, sat with me all day watching my kid wrestle. Then 2 weeks later, I was all the way up in the Poconos area, and another buddy flew in, watched wrestling all day. Here's a guys I wrestled with, God, 30 years ago, literally 30 years ago. But we built those relationships through being on a team and being together and going through battles with which these kids lost, that you can't replace.
You can't get it back. That's a good point. You can't get it back.
Yeah.
Like when someone was 7 and 8 years old, they're never going to be 7 or 8 years old again.
Yeah.
So all the things, and I like how you pointed out that it's exponential, meaning like I don't know if that's the way to explain it, but you were saying at a younger age, the curve ends up flattening out or something like that as you get older. Like that's why, for example, when you teach a kid another language at age 3 and 4, it sticks, right? Whereas when you try to teach them at 15, it's harder. When you teach them at 25, good luck.
Yep.
You know, so the learning ability has been ripped from them, assuming that they lost most of their opportunity through virtual learning and through not being around people. But the not being around people goes so much farther in the education and goes to that whole interpersonal relationship building.
Yeah.
And, you know, you bring up something simple like relationships you built from where you grew up, the town you grew up in, and your friends you played sports with. And I would say that's been a generational thing across every American generation from the 20th and 21st centuries. Now we're looking at a generation that is going to be the first one that has an enormous disconnect from their fellow person. And the scary part about it is the comfort of what it provides, because it's almost like, what's that one quote? Rogan says it all the time. It's like, many men live lives of quiet desperation, right? Yeah. They don't know why they're miserable. Well, they do. They're sitting on the couch and they're miserable, and they don't remind themselves it's because they're sitting on their couch and not doing anything with their life, or not going after their passions, or seeing other people. Simple things, right? It doesn't just have to be about like how much money I go to make, but they get stuck in that because that's the easy thing to do. Yeah. They get up, the couch is right there, the TV's right there. You do it 1 day, you do it 2 days, you do it 3 days, you do it a week, a month, a year, boom. You're not getting out of it. Yeah. Now these kids, they got used to getting up, opening up, I guess, like the laptop or whatever. Maybe they did it on an iPhone too, iPad, whatever, and going to virtual class, not paying attention, and not really getting graded hard, because teachers, there's only so much teachers can do, and they want to be fair too. Everyone's dealing with it. And now they're told, and this didn't happen with your school, but a lot of schools, now they're told, oh, you got to go back in person. Oh, you got to talk to people. Oh, there's going to be a dance this weekend. You got to ask that girl to a dance. You got to be okay failing too. Yeah. Good luck with that.
Yeah. And I think you make a good point. You talk about habits. You know, there's good habits and there's bad habits. And in that situation, there was a lot of bad habits that were basically brought into, you know, kids' lives. Waking up whenever you want to. Kids not showing up for virtual learning because mom and dad weren't home. If they were a little bit older, who's watching over them? Who's going to make them wake up and get on the virtual learning class? You know, there's a lot of those habits that were formed when the brain is still developing, which is now not a good thing, because that's kind of ingrained in how they're going to live their lives, you know? Whereas, you know, in a school setting, you know, you have more positive influences. There's teachers that are fabulous, that go way beyond what they need to do to be a good teacher, staying afterwards, talking to kids. You know, I got one situation where one of the kids in the school, you know, he got in trouble. He had a pretty rough upbringing, and he got in trouble down in Wildwood. And the one teacher drove all the way down to Wildwood to be a character reference for him. And you know what the unique thing about him is that he ended up turning out really, really well in life. He's doing great now.
Those are awesome stories to hear.
Yes. And this individual, he's also part of the weight room, the afternoon weight club that we run.
We're going to talk about that.
Yes.
I love what you're doing with this.
Yeah. And he's just he's a compassionate teacher. And you know that he's going to see the things in certain kids and ask the good questions and show empathy and show that he cares about them. And I think a lot of those teachers, because the teachers were vilified there for a little while.
Oh, sure.
Just that whole environment too. They get paid. You got to understand. A lot of these teachers got $150,000, college debt.
Oh, yeah.
And you start at 45, 50,000. You're not going to pay that debt off for 20, 25 years. I mean,
it's almost like the system is set up to fail them.
Yes.
No, it's the stories like that I love to hear, and I'm curious how many of them we've been able to get in the past couple of years at so many places, because how do you build a relationship with your new class when it's just you're on Zoom?
Yeah.
And the other connotation there that I think is something that's easy to forget just from, like, let's say the average American just living in middle-class suburbia kind of has everything around them. But 5 years from now, if you are still sleeping on a regular mattress without an 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover, it's going to be like using a flip phone in an iPhone world. I truly believe that, because 8 Sleep's Pod Pro cover is the first time that legit sleep technology has come to mattresses. The Pod Pro cover comes in queen or king sizes. It goes right on top of your current mattress and integrates seamlessly with 8 Sleep's proprietary app that measures things throughout the night, including your body temperature and your sleep stages, so that your sleep is optimized around you. So as I like to say, you'll wake up in the morning after sleeping 6 hours and feel like you slept 8. It's phenomenal. I've been using the product for almost a year. It's a total game changer. I can't imagine never using it again. I mean, it's like once you use it, you can't not. It's incredible. So if you use the link in my description along with the code TRENDIFIER at checkout, that's TRENDIFIER, you will get $100 off your own 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover today. And if you want to get the full mattress, which is the same product, it just includes a mattress as well, you'll get $100 off that too. That's more pricey because it's a full mattress. But I use the 8 Sleep Pod Pro cover. I love it. Use that code TRENDIFIER with my link at checkout. Get $100 off and change your life today. You point out that in that story, the one about the kid in Wildwood, he didn't come from a great home and a good situation. Things that a lot of us can simply take for granted. And in this pandemic, at any public school, private schools too, depending on where it is, like, you're dealing with sending some kids to now not have the one environment that's their escape, that fills, by the way, a lot of their time and gives them a positive influence overall in their life. And instead, you're now saying, no, you have to go and live in your situation at all times. And I think about the kids, and you and I were talking off camera about this, but I think about the kids who, are at home where there's people using drugs around them, or who there's even child abuse. They don't give a shit about them. Yep. And now they don't even have the reprieve of the outside world just to pretend that they're normal for 8 hours a day.
Yep. I mean, listen, it's not only educational stability, I call it social stability. It's the one environment where they're safe. They have that social environment where it's positive in many ways, from interacting with other students, with interacting teachers like I just talked about that care about them. Right. As well as, think about how many kids that may have been abused that weren't even, identified because they're in the environment. They're not at the school. Where is it detected most of the time? In school, by a nurse, by a teacher, seeing something, asking the tough questions. Are you okay? Or, there's something wrong there. Could you tell me a little bit more about that? And then that's where you dig and you find out maybe something's not right there. And so you took away the protection of the other environment, which was the school, which is, people don't realize it's the best interest of the child. That we're trying to educate them. We're trying to socialize them. We're trying to do a lot of things. And
how many of those do you get a year? Because I'm sure you get notified of all of them.
Believe it or not, I've been there a long time. We don't have many issues along those lines. We really don't.
So that's more rare.
I would say our issues are more just I'm also the homeless liaison. So we have kids that are either transient. So in other words, they're either living with relatives, they're sleeping on other people's couches, or, maybe dad died, mom's struggling, and those type of things where, we have to help them right away. Get them educational stability, make sure they stay in our school, make sure if they're living in the town next to us that we get them bused back to our school so it stays stable. We're not sending them to the school next door, which now it's all new friends, all new teachers, everything has to change for them. No, we keep it stable, bus them back, and that's called the McKenty-Vento law. And through the federal McKinney-Vento law, it's our obligation to, first off, eliminate all barriers. So these individuals can now get their education no matter what's going on in their lives. Whether there is, a domestic...
What's that law called?
It's called McKenty-Vento.
McKenty-Vento. Keep talking.
Yeah, McKinney-Vento, that's another area that I'm the McKinney-Vento coordinator or homeless coordinator, that when I took it over, it was a lot of work.
Sure.
And had to get it streamlined, and it's a pretty, I think it's a great law, because think about it, these kids don't have, and we just talked about that, they don't have any stability in their lives. The house burnt down, or the parents got divorced and they got shipped to grandmom's.
Oh, so it's also, with this law, you're trying to keep track of not just, a kid's living in the town next over now, wherever, he's going to go to school there, we want to stop him from going to school there. It's also like, well, is he going to go to school at all, or is he going to be lost to the system? And you want to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yes.
Got it. So this law, because you said, I got to pull it up here, but you said it's, like, who does it punish? Does it punish high schools that don't follow up on this type of thing?
Well, it really doesn't punish anybody. The big issue is...
If you do something wrong, I mean.
The big issue is the school that is responsible for the kid going homeless. So in other words, say they went homeless from Pennsville and they end up in Penns Grove. If they decide to stay in the Penns Grove, they charge Pennsville for the tuition. Yes, it's interesting. Yeah,
I like that.
Let's put it this way: there was a lot of money when I took it over. I'd never done homeless before when I took the job, because that was a title that just kind of got pushed onto my desk. It was interesting. But probably my biggest job when I first took over the position, sometimes $400,000, $500,000 moving from place to place. You're talking about half $500,000.
How many kids?
When I took it over, we were close to 105 kids.
Wow.
We're down to about 26, 27 because I think I've identified them better. And I also think that I just think that people are doing a better job of placing them or finding them homes and stuff like that. But going back to that, when a kid comes from out of state, like say a kid comes from Florida and they're living on a couch of grandmom or a relative, now we charge the state for the tuition. So the state picks up the tuition. It's just an interesting thing financially. There's this whole financial background of it that nobody knows about it, that I do, because you could lose a lot of money if you're not on top of it. And I'll give you an example. We had a kid that went homeless in another area in the state. And the school told me that if they stay in that town for a year, they become a resident of that district. And then what happens?
Even if they're sleeping on a couch.
Even if they're sleeping on the couch. Okay. It takes 1 year. It's 12 months residency criteria. So they go there, they sleep on the couch. At that 1 year mark, we no longer pay. Now it becomes their responsibility to basically educate, pay for everything, that type of thing. Now, if that kid then goes somewhere else and is homeless, now they pay that other school. So it's an intricate little system. But here's the thing. Sometimes schools, like the school told me, they had moved from the hotel on this date. Well, I checked. I called the hotel, and I was in contact with those people, and they said, we left this date. So we weren't really responsible for them. So we would have been responsible for that debt for another year, when it really wasn't our debt.
And that's tough too, because you're trying to do what's in the best interest of the kids, and there's so many different ones to unfortunately to have to keep track of, and where are they, and a lot of them, through no fault of their own in that situation, probably aren't like the greatest students either, because they're not in school sometimes. It's like a whole, it's kind of a cynical way to say it, but it is true. There is a business in this country with everything.
Sure.
And school is no different. You got to pay for it.
Yep.
You got to make sure that you can hire the teachers to be there and set up a good enough environment for people to learn, and that does require attendance. It requires a population in the school.
Yeah.
So, when you talk about laws like this, I've never heard of that. I'll have to look more into that. But, I think the spirit of it is very good, because you're trying to create accountability for not letting kids slip through the cracks and fall through the system, pretty much.
I think what's unique about it too, through the McKenty-Venter law, you can provide counseling, in-home counseling, and everything's paid for. Through our region, they set up certain counselors that we can call and send out on off hours. There's tutors. There's a number of things. We're provided with like backpacks and clothing and food and those type of things if they need them as well, which are very supportive. Wow. And I think the biggest thing with, people that are like surfing on couches and stuff like that is the stigma of it. And so when they feel there's a stigma where they're going to be asked too many questions, oh, where you living? I need a bill, blah, 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 now that's a barrier. And when that barrier goes up, guess what they do? They just don't come back to school.
Yeah, they shut down.
They shut down. And the goal is not for them to shut down. The goal is to get them back in school, stabilize them, have the one thing that's constant in their life, your same teacher that says hello to you every morning,
right,
that asks you, how you doing? The guy in the hallway, the administrator in the hallway, good morning. Like, you think they're simple things, but to a kid like that, it's more than simple. That's the one thing in their life that's normal. And it goes so far. And I just think it's a wonderful law. And it's done wonders, I think, for a lot of these kids that have had rough lives moving from place to place, and just trying to help them get them back on the right track, as well as then have them be productive human beings later on in life.
Yeah. And so they put that, you said you didn't have experience with homelessness, but they put that on your desk, and, reading through everything you do, you're wearing every hat here. Yeah. So it was only natural they were going to give you this one too. Yeah. But what got you into this? Because we're going to talk about, I do want to get to that thing you mentioned about the system you put in place for, I guess, like the opposite of detention for detention in like a very good way. Yes. Very cool stuff. Yeah. But it's very clear that a guy like you, who's not a teacher but is a face that kids see at school, you've been a major source of confidence and comfort in them throughout this entire pandemic especially. Yeah. And so leaders like you who are in schools around this country, there's a lot of great people working at schools and working with kids, but sitting in your kind of seat and seeing all these things and it being your job, not as the teacher, but as like the evaluator psychologically of how everything's going, that's a heavy burden to carry, and it's got to be someone who's passionate about it. So, when did this become a thing where you're like, I want to work with all these kids, and this is what I want to do? I think it all started with coaching. Because you're constantly mentoring, you're a leader, you're trying to make people better, not only just in the sport that you're coaching, but as human beings. I mean, you understand that they're not going to play soccer for the rest of their lives, or they're not going to be a wrestler for the rest of their lives. So, you have to teach those values and those morals that when they step over the line, that it's more than the sport. That's why there's consequence. That's why you may have to sit a match, or you might sit a soccer game because you didn't do the right thing. I think, because when I originally got my master's degree, I did a grad assistantship with the wrestling program at the College of New Jersey. And I had an unbelievable mentor coach there named Dave Eisenhower, in the Wrestling Hall of Fame, won over 600 dual meets, 5 national championships. He was a mentor of men.
And just even, when he passed away was, hard on a lot of people. A lot of people blogged about the things that he taught. And listen, I was not the perfect assistant coach. I can tell you that. I mean, God, did some really dumb things, But when I got called in the office on Monday morning, it was like a second father, learning from him and saying, wow, I won't do that again, and just remembering conversations from him to this day, and going back every year to sit in his office. And it's like I was there, yesterday with him still teaching me about life, and just a wonderful experience, because I kind of wanted to be how he taught.
Right.
I wanted to be the same mentor he was. And then obviously, it morphed from there. And then I, went out into the real world, and then eventually, because my degree is in counseling, personal services.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So with this emphasis in drug and alcohol. So, with the therapist background, that whole 9 yards.
Did you, I'm curious about that, just a sidebar on it. So you majored in that with an emphasis on drugs and alcohol?
Yes.
Was there a specific reason you wanted to do that?
Well, here's what I will say. This started in high school. I had a friend in high school, and she was a runner, and she had anorexia and bulimia, and she used to confide in me a lot. Not that I thought I was great at it at the time, but, I was a good ear for her to sound. I was a sounding board to her. And so she kind of was like, you're really good at this. Maybe you should be a counselor. You know what I mean? And I was kind of, I wanted to be pre-med the first 2 years. I struggled. It just, I was always a good student, but I just didn't think it was for me. And
you got to be so interested in that.
Yeah. And not only that, and if you're an athlete and you're trying to do sports and you're lifting weights and you're doing all these other things, it wore me down to the point where it ground me up. And that's what they try to do. You really can't do anything else but be a doctor,
No, that's how it should be too. Because if it's not, think about it. If you go into a doctor's office, and everyone's got different personalities, but if they don't love what they do, do you want to go to that doctor?
No.
They better love every mitochondrial whatever cell there is in there that I can't talk. I just definitely butchered that, but that is a good way to put it. It's a good way to sift the people out who really want to do this.
Yeah. So so with that kind of pushed me into that arena, and then I said, you know what, I'd like to specialize in drug and alcohol. And the crazy part, I didn't have any drug and alcohol in my family.
That's
so
interesting.
it wasn't one of those things. And I will tell you, they were hard on me in my master's degree, because they felt at the time like things were different then. You're talking about in the late 80s, early 90s when I did my master's.
Don, I thought you were 35.
Oh, yeah. I wish. So the whole premise back then was that you needed to experience being an addict in order to be able to counsel addicts. So I used to get that a lot when I was doing, the master's degree in classes and speaking up. And it was always like, well, you never felt the way they felt. And I never agreed with that whole philosophy, because I always felt that if you followed the principles of counseling and you were empathetic and you were good at what you do, you didn't need to be an addict, or a former addict, I should say, to be a good counselor in the drug and alcohol world.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying, maybe this isn't a perfect parallel, but if you're a cardiologist, you need to have had a heart attack.
Yes. Yeah. Think about that.
Right?
Yeah.
Like your job is to listen and study and learn over time, right? Like the first day you're an alcohol counselor, you're probably no good. You gotta actually see like, oh, okay. And it sucks because it's like, well, they fucked up. We won't do that again. And as people, but that's a part of like developing into the job. So that's weird that was the attitude. I don't know. Is that's not as much the attitude today?
Because
I wouldn't have thought
because
that.
I when I finally went back to being a therapist, I didn't go in that arena. I didn't really enjoy that arena, because here's what I'll tell you. So if you're a baseball player and you play on a baseball team and you lose 80% of the time, do you really like playing baseball? Drug and alcohol counselors lose a lot of battles. Relapse is constant. Yeah. You're constantly losing battles. So if you're competitive, you're like, I'm competitive. I'm like, wow, I'm losing this battle. I'm not winning this battle. And it was hard for me to understand because you put a lot of, you invest time, effort, empathy, and a lot of times that doesn't work in that, career. And so I kind of said, you know what, this isn't for me. And it was interesting because an older guy told me, so, you intern, and the old guy goes, pulls me aside, he goes, you can't believe a damn thing they tell you. And I'm like, oh, okay. They lie. And I was like, oh, okay. So, I mean, he's trying to educate me on the backside of, now here's an older guy that had been doing it for years and years and been through the wars, but he was committed to it. That was going to be his life. He was committed to it. Me, I was like, my eyes were wide open. I'm like, I don't know if this is for me, And so I originally then, I mean, at that point then, I started going towards the other way, which was more a therapist, child adolescent therapist, which I really enjoyed because going back to kids can change.
Oh yeah.
And they can change quickly and they can change drastically. Whereas I wasn't a therapist or counselor for the adults. I was the only child and adolescent therapist. I had over 100 kids on my caseload, and I was really good at it.
Was that through like a school system?
No, that was actually through just a counseling agency in Salem County. And
you're young. You're 20.
Well, that was 25? When I was a little bit older. That's what got me back to where I am now. Got out of the private market and got back. And that opened my. And what happened was, Pennsville was sending a lot of kids my way, and then when I interviewed, that was kind of like my in. Like, listen, I know what's going on in the town. I know where you need help in that type of thing. So that kind of parlayed me in. I heard there was a lot of applicants, over 100 applicants for my position.
You had familiarity.
Yeah, and believe it or not, having the wrestling coaching background, like all these things, they help. They saw, the college in New Jersey, 5 national championships, blah, blah, blah. That comes off the page, And my time being a child adolescent therapist was really interesting because the question, you have to do an intake interview. And there was always.
What do you mean?
So you do an interview where you got to get all the background information on this child or adolescent, and you got to ask tough questions. Sexual abuse, and you would always go down, and you're getting to that. What question that is? Question 28, and you're looking up, going, oh please tell me no. You know what I mean? And then when the kid says yes, and you're like, wow, oh, here we go. Now my case has become that much harder.
How do you deal with? I'm curious. I got to ask you about this. How do you deal with that when you get the yes right away? Where does your mind go?
My mind goes to sadness. That because having kids of my own, and knowing that poor child, what they've endured, and then trying to not fix it, but make it right. And be the person in their life that can actually take them to a better place. That was that was the hardest part about that. The kids that come in that made it needed to be more social. Simple. Let's work on being more social. Let's work on raising your voice. Let's work on the techniques are simple. The techniques aren't simple for that kind of thing.
If it's actively, like if they tell you, yeah, it's happening right now. Is that where the law? I don't know what it's called, but the whole where the where
it's a
you can break,
law
yeah,
where
you can report it.
Yeah,
right?
You have to break. You could the things that you break confidentiality for is if that person tells you they're going to harm themselves or harm others or abuse.
That's actively happening.
Yeah, that's actively happening, and at that point now, confidentiality, and listen, that's the thing you explain right out of the gate. You introduce yourself. Obviously, everything's confidential. You go right down the line. But if this is going on or that's going on, you tell me this, then I have to break confidentiality and notify, so, but I think that the big thing with, the most going back to more of the positive side of kids is when you're good at what you do and you care and you want to help them, they can change. Amazing. I mean, I remember seeing kids later on after I helped them for over a year, seeing me at the supermarket. Hey, how you doing? I was called Mr. Don.
Mr. Don.
Mr. Don. Hey, Mr. Don, how you doing? You know what I mean? And parents being grateful for what you did.
That's a home run. When
yes.
the parents are on board with everything you're doing
yes.
to help their kid, that's a home run.
I will say one of the saddest times was I did have a few adults that got pushed onto my caseload when counselors left. And I had an individual then that took his own life. You almost feel guilt. Like, what could I have done? What could I have done to help this individual see clarity and see that the world's a great place, not a bad place, a great place. And his situation was very interesting with laws and stuff. And the noose got tight on him, like, from a standpoint of that he felt like he couldn't get out from underneath the laws.
What do you mean underneath the laws?
So there was laws that kept getting put on top of him because of, probation and that type of thing. He didn't see an out. He didn't see a future. He didn't see that he could live a normal life because every time he's trying to, he has to report. Can't get a normal job because he's got to report, in the middle of the day. How's a guy supposed to work a normal job?
It's another topic, but we should go with that for a second because it is, I think about this a lot now. We have a society where we call these places departments of corrections, right? They don't do a lot of correcting there. No. That's not the idea. And then when prisoners come out, look, someone goes in there and they're a serial killer, they're never coming out, right? They are a clear danger to society, and they're incorrigible or whatever the term is. But people they go, they serve their time. That's their debt, so to speak, in quotes. And then you paid your debt. Yeah. And we have set up a system now that makes it, and I don't have a good answer for all of it because there's certain things, of course, you don't think I would have wanted to know Jeffrey Epstein was a sexual predator? Yeah. Of course I wanted to know that. Sure. There's certain things where this does not apply. But, people who do some normal shit, sometimes, I don't want to say normal, but they fuck up once and then they can never get a job. They're followed their whole life. Yes. Even if they're off probation, there's background checks and all this stuff. It's normal parts of life, but you become a convicted felon or whatever and then you're that forever. Yeah. You have that label. That's archaic. That label's there, and you have to put that on your job application. Yeah. Do you think they're really going to hire that person after they check that box? Yeah. Of course not. I mean, listen, I think we fail from a standpoint of, we're shipping jobs here or there. Why couldn't we have jobs set up already where we're spending tons and tons of money with our government? You're telling me we can't provide jobs for these individuals. Going back to kids and going back to homeless, they just need stability. Yeah. They need hope. They need to have a normal life when they come out. The problem is there's no normalcy because they can't get the basics, which is a job, which you need a job to make money, to have an apartment, to buy food. So what's it do? It pushes them back into criminal behavior because they don't have nothing else. Yep. It's the system. It's not hard to figure out, but you have to put the money in the right things. Yeah, and the shitty part is it's also, this is where it gets into, like anything in the world, there's downsides to everything. And this is where you get to one of the downsides in capitalism. And I always say I think capitalism is the best system in the world. I don't think socialism is a good idea at all. I don't think any of that shit is. But it has its flaws. And when you look at free markets and you talk about incentivizing, setting up stability and jobs and stuff like that, this is a global world. You know, am I okay with the fact that our iPhone was made with slave labor? No.
Yeah.
Do I own an iPhone? Yes. Do I feel a certain type of way about that once in a while? Yeah. Do I think that's good? Absolutely not. It's a horrible thing. But that's an extreme. The less extreme is where, people who aren't slaves might make something for $3 in Guatemala or something. And, you know, it costs $8 here.
Yeah.
How are you setting up? You're a businessman. Your job running your company is, especially if you're a public company.
Sure.
I mean, these people are brutal, the investors and everything. Like, they got to report quarterly to all these people, and there's screaming in the media. People are sending out tweets now in the modern day about their company. It's like, well, they got to make it over there.
Yeah.
And the incentivization for them to do it here is so low. It sucks.
Yeah. I mean, so, I mean, to answer your question, I mean, there's been so many different avenues that took me to where I am today, you know, from the background. And you know, I honestly think that, you know, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And you take paths because they're the paths you're supposed to take, you know. And, you know, I think it starts with just good people around you. I always say, you hang with a bank robber, you become a bank robber.
Yes.
You hang with people that are successful and positive and good human beings, you will be a positive, good human being.
What's that? What's that quote?
Birds of a feather flock together.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's
it. So, you know, for instance, that individual that I was telling you about, great human being, Mark Moore, you know, me being his mentor. That was another thing. I mentored him at a young age. That was another thing that
was
kind of...
that a professional relationship?
That was, well, I forgot this one piece. So when I got out from the master's degree, I started this company called Program for Results, term Pro Results. And my whole premise was that back then, nobody did it. Literally, my son goes, "You really screwed up." I can't believe you gave up on that. And so the whole premise was that athletes, you know, athletes that come from bad backgrounds, when they had too much idle time, they were going to go back to the old school roots. They were going to go back to the bad influences, and they were going to get in trouble, which, if you looked, a lot of them did. But if you built their pie of life that was more positive, so take the pie of life here, boom, sports, making lots of money. They're training every day, morning, night. They're watching film. They have time to go and do really dumb things, right?
Couple of them do.
Yeah.
Couple
Some of them find a way, right?
Couple.
So now you build
yes.
you build the other pie of life where they donate time to a charity. So now you're starting to complete the pie. Then you get them to invest in a new company where they got to constantly be there in their off season. Where what is their passion? You find out what their passion is, and you build that piece of the pile. So now, instead of going back to the old town, going back to the old city where, you know, bad things are happening, they're too busy to do that. And so Pro Results, Program for Results, it basically set goals on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, and where you had to check in with me. And we went over it every week, whether it was, at the time, there was no Zoom, but they were starting to get technology somewhat like that. Cost a lot of money, and I was
going to say, you were holding the Gordon Gekko phone out there calling people.
Yes. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, I was kind of ahead of my time. So, like, again, going back to, so this individual I was talking about, this Mark Moore, young man, he was like my first client. I did him for free. Met him in the gym. He was
How old was he?
I would say Mark was 16, 17.
Oh, so he was still a kid.
Yeah. He still follows the program. He's got the book. And he still follows the program. He's in his 40s now. And he'll tell you, I changed his life. I didn't think I was doing that much at the time. So I finally, you know, I take him, and I had a kid that was, I say kid, he was in his 20s. He was playing for the Philadelphia Phantoms, which was the minor league for the Flyers. Well, I do well with him. He gets me in for a meeting with the Flyers. I literally go to the Flyers arena. I meet with one of the top guys, and I was close to getting in. And I I plugged away for a while and I just couldn't get my foot in any door and I abandoned it. And it's kind of like how I was when I was younger. I was kind of just jumping around trying to find the right things to make money or what I felt
Done that too.
Yes. Yep. And you know, maybe I should have followed the book. You know what I mean? And stayed committed to the one thing, you know? But what I will tell you, later on in life, it all came back. It all came back. I mean, because that's how I coach now. That's how I teach kids in school. That's how I mentor. All that stuff because when I say I sat and read books for over a year, I read all Tony Robbins books. I read all the motivational books that you could actually imagine that were out there. Bought them. You know, went to Barnes & Noble, bought them all, read them. I took bits and pieces of what I thought was good from each one. And then I said to myself, you know what's wrong with all these books? You know what's wrong with all these motivators? They have books that are 500 pages long. Do you really think somebody's going to read that 500-page book and then execute all that stuff in there? So what Program for Results was a condensed version to make it easy, to make it where the 1% of gains was happening all the time.
You gamified it too.
Yes.
You basically set it up where it sounds like it was more of like making it a communal effort with you.
Yes.
You know, where it's almost like this is business.
Yes.
Life and I don't mean this in like a stereotypical bad way. Like we're gonna make life a fun business.
Yes.
Our business is where do we spend our time? Well, we got to spend our time on being a pro athlete because that's a lot of time.
Yep.
But what about this time of day when I'm not a pro athlete? What about that time of year when we're in the off season? And then suddenly it's like you fill that with something to do. And it's not, even from like a mental perspective, you talk to athletes who have retired. And I've talked with some over the years of varying degrees of happiness afterwards. To a man, the ones who didn't have something else that was at least on their mind while they were playing, which, by the way, isn't their fault either, because they're, you know, some of these guys were great players and they had great long careers. You know, they're retiring and they're 35 years old.
Sure.
They got their whole life in front of them. Yeah. And they've been basically, call it full time in whatever sport they're in for the last 20 years since they got to high school. Yeah. And this has consumed their life. And, you know, if it's football, they've been watching film since forever. And this is all they know. Yeah. And if they make it to the pros, in the pros, there's so much shit going on. Everything is done for you. Yes. You show up here at this time. Yep. You go to this thing at this time. We book the hotel. You go to the bus at this point. Everyone's moving. You're moving in 12 different directions. And so you need people to manage that. Yeah. And then suddenly it's over. Yeah. And you go home. And you're like, what do I do now? Yeah. And I heard a line in a show like a decade ago, Boardwalk Empire, where, great show, by the way, if you're a Jersey guy. But Boardwalk Empire was, Arnold Rothstein in the show said the hardest thing, and it's not his quote, someone else said this, but the hardest thing for a man to do is sit alone in a room with his thoughts and be okay. And man, we could apply that to a lot of things. Just while we're talking about this right now, I think about like the dudes like Tom Brady right now is going home to like 5 businesses he started during his career. Even him, I wonder, those 2 hours in the day where normally that was never a thing, he's sitting there going, what the fuck do I do? Yeah. You know, you're so intense for that long. It's hard. Yeah. I'm sure you saw a lot of that. Yeah. You know, and I think that applies to the military too. I mean, these guys, they go and fight in these wars and they're kicking doors down and they're relying on the guy next to them, because if that guy doesn't do his job, he dies. That's their family. They know more about each other than probably some of the brothers of the brother would know about them. I mean, that's deep. And then we ship them home and they honorably discharge, or they retire. And they saw a lot of shit too. And listen, they need help. Going back to the whole mental thing, the mental health thing, it's huge in all arenas, you know? And then you expect them to just live normal lives when they've seen stuff that no human being should ever see. That's tough. That's another tough one, you know? And listen, that program would work for individuals like that too. Really would. Absolutely. You know, think about it. And them checking in.
I think that's the big thing. And you don't have the stigma of, oh, it's a therapist. I never wanted to sound like I was, even though that was my background and I built it to be therapeutic, but at the time that was a very stigma, shrink, therapist.
Yeah.
Oh, God forbid somebody found out you did that, you know? I mean, they would think you're crazy, you know, when you needed help, you know? And I think that's kind of eroded over the years now. I mean, even in the military, like that was kind of forbidden at one time. If they knew you needed a therapist or whatever, they would try to kind of push you out. Right. Now it's just listen, they've finally come to understanding that what these people are seeing and what these people are going through is traumatic to a person's psyche.
Love how they didn't have that figured out in 1945. You'd think, you know?
No.
I don't. It's a balance,
yeah.
you know, and military is the extreme example, but it's a very real one.
Yeah.
A lot of, I don't even know the number of active military we have, but it's a high number. And we've had millions and millions of veterans who are alive right now from the last, call it 50, 60 years, and they struggle with this. But, you know, you never want to go to a point like anything else in society, that 0 to 100 thing, where it goes from suck it up and shut the fuck up all the way to every single thing's a problem.
Yeah.
Every single thing. Like you can't do anything without consulting on it. So you don't want to go there.
Yeah.
But what I see is that we get those two camps too often, where that's what it is. Someone says, shut the fuck up and deal with it. The other person is like, no, you had, oh my God, you just ate, your breakfast sucked. You should talk to somebody about that.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's kind of on everyone, and I'd say their environment around them too, having a positive environment of people to understand the critical time to be like, hey, I need to talk about things.
Yeah.
This is real.
Yeah.
You know, versus also then knowing like, you know what, today sucked. I'm going to fix that.
Yeah.
I can do that. I'm a human being. I have a capability.
Yeah.
I can do that. And I struggle with this because I never want to appear judgmental of anyone. I don't know what's going on in their head.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to be like, hey, you're going to be all right. Like you are underestimating yourself a little bit. And I'm curious, like in your seat, how often you give a little bit of that, I don't want to even say like tough love, but like a little bit of that dose of reality to kids where it's like, hey, I'm helping you with this, and that. We got to focus on that. That's real. But like this stuff over here, here's the plan. Go execute.
Yeah. No, I would use the word tough love. I really would.
I didn't know if you would want me to. But.
No. I mean, listen, if you talk to kids about me, they would say that he's hard on me, but he cares about me. I think that's what I would say. I would say a majority. There's always a few that you don't get through to, and it's so sad because that's you're like, why didn't I get through to that? They weren't ready, or nor did they want to seek help or get help. But I think what's interesting that I think you have to be tough in order for them to change, because like you said, you can't go one side or the other side, But I think the only way you can be tough, and what I realized is over the years, is that you have to build the rapport and trust first. Once you build the trust and rapport first, you're able to then be tough. I've been tough in the beginning where I really didn't get to understand that individual or that person or that human being, and it bit me because
that's how they know you.
Yeah. Because now they don't trust me.
Yep.
Because they don't see me as caring. And that's what I try to explain to a lot of individuals, teachers. Like, you got to understand what they're going through first to understand where they're coming from. And listen, behavior, it's not an excuse to act out. But it is the reason why they're acting out. So if you can understand that and just say, listen, they're less likely to act out in your class as a teacher is if they know you care about them. And you see that with the teachers that go a little above and beyond to talk to kids after class, after school, or they're involved in their clubs or activities because these teachers spend time in different clubs and activities, or they're a coach. they're less likely to act up in those classes than they are the classes where they feel the teachers do not care about them. And so going back to my role is, once they realize how much I care about them, I can start changing them. I'll give you an example. There was a kid, a pretty unique individual. I opened the door from the office. I'm in the main office, so I'm an administrator. So it's the principal, vice principal, and me, the student assistant coordinator. So I opened the door. I knocked this kid's iPhone, going back to the iPhones, into the air, onto the ground. Didn't break. He MFs me. Literally.
On purpose? You knocked
No,
it?
no. I opened the door. He happened to be walking by. The doors go out. You know what I mean? Oh, dude. He was a kid that transferred in from Florida and had a pretty rough go. And it hit him. He MF'd me. And I was like, I was kind of hot at the time. To roll. I was ready to roll, but I'm like, I can't do this. And so the principal comes up, what's going on, Don? I'm like, he just basically told me to go, F myself and all that. I said, but you know what? That's okay. And we worked through it. So I went to my office and I said, you know what? I got to be the bigger person here. I got to get through to this kid. I got to do a better job of finding out what's going on in his life to act like that. And he didn't, he had transferred a few times. So this was a new environment to him. He didn't know nobody. He was kind of a tough guy. Kind of reminded me in high school. I was a tough guy, but I had a good upbringing and I did everything the right way. And I stood up for the kids that were getting bullied, like where he may be the bully. I don't know. So I see him. I go, I had it's called a super strength leadership group. So it's this group of just males. We get together and we just talk and we do team building and we do all these great things. And then I get them to go to the after school weightlifting club. And so what we work on is we invite leaders. We invite captains of the football team. We invite band members. We invite at-risk kids. We invite kids that are antisocial. We invite kids that are special education that may not even be able to talk. Maybe in a wheelchair. Wow. You're part of the group. We mix out everybody because the goal is to get everybody to get to know each other on different levels. That the band member's like, wow, the football player's a pretty cool dude. He talked to me. And so what I do is I do team building, and you're with a different group. Like you may be with the band members with the football player one time, and they're on a team, and they got to do this team building exercise and compete against others. So they get to know each other. They talk, and it's once a week, for 8 to 10 weeks, and there's exercises. And then at the end we have pizza parties, and then I do the new group, And so I said, you know what? Let me ask this kid if he wants to be in my super strength leadership group. He's probably going to think I'm crazy because he basically wanted to fight me. I said, you know what? So I see him in the hallway and I go, hey, Alfie, could you come over here? You want to come in my office? He goes, okay. Did I do something wrong? I go, you didn't do anything wrong. I said, everything's cool, man. I'm good, man. I said, let's just talk. And I said to him, so where are you from? Tells me he's from Florida. I said, what's going on? I said, tell me a little bit about your life. I said, this is who I am. I said, here's some pictures on why. I said, that's my daughter, that's my son. So I give him a little background of who I am. He starts going, wow, he's human. He's not this administrator looking to get me suspended and all that and putting the pressure on me. And then he sat in my office for over an hour and he tells me about, Florida. And then believe it or not, he starts telling me like deeper things. And I'm like, whoa, I didn't think it would go this deep this quick. It's more of like a therapy session. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you made him comfortable.
And I made him comfortable. And I said, listen, you got to go back to class. I said, we'll talk more. I said, you can come down anytime. Come down and just bullcrap with me, I said, doors will always open. I said, just tell a teacher you need to see the Mr. Palmucci, come down. And I got this leadership group. I go, it sounds crazy. I said, it's nothing. It's not like a cold or anything like that. I said, we just get together. We eat food. I go, and we do team building exercises. I said, you would be great. He goes, me? Great? I don't know. He goes, I'll do it though. I said, okay. I said, when you hear your name on the announcement, come down. He ends up being my best leader ever in the school.
That's awesome.
He ends up speaking at the end of the year to the whole school about what the leadership group and the weightlifting club did for him. So I get to know him better, and I said, "So, what's your goals in life?" I said, what do you see yourself? He goes, "I want to be a Marine." He goes, "I can't pass the ASVAB."
The what?
The ASVAB. It's the test to get into the military.
I didn't know that's what it was called.
It's called the ASVAB. Yeah. So and listen, it's pretty hard. And so I said, all right. I said, last period, you're going to study with me every day. I said, I'm going to pull up tests, and you're going to go over them. I said, we're going to talk about it, and you're going to pass this test.
Oh, is this that thing you got to get like a 34 on it or something?
Yes.
Yeah. I had a little twin on here. He's like, I got there. I was taking the test. I thought I wanted to do this. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this. He sits down and I handed it in, and I got a 33, and I'm like, I'm out.
Yep. So he failed it 4 times. And this was going to be the 5th time, and it was more of just confidence. He didn't believe in himself. I think that was the big thing. And and obviously he prepped. We prepped him for it. We got, it's easy. You just go on the military website. They give you all, but it's consistency, repetition. We kept doing it. He passes it with flying colors, becomes a Marine. I got to tell you, so he knew he had to go to boot camp. So that summer, he trained with me all summer in weightlifting.
I had a boot camp.
Getting ready for boot camp.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. And he's like, normally he wasn't the best trainer in the weight club, but he saw the goal and he had the objectives. He knew what he had to do. I never worked so hard that summer. He's like, Mr. Palmucci, we got to do more than this. I'm not going to be prepped. We got to go run now. We got to do push-ups, this, that. I'm like, okay, whatever you want. I'm here for you, man. And he ends up going away. He re-enlisted. He did 4 already. He re-enlisted for another 4. He said, I might make a career out of it. He wants to be a cop now, maybe. So I made a couple phone calls to some police chiefs that I know from being in the whole, school arena. And, at least he knew what he had to do to become a cop. But he goes, they gave me like a big, huge bonus. So I re-enlisted. I said, perfect. So every time he's on leave, comes into town, we go to lunch, we talk. Sometimes he'll come back in the afternoon. He'll lift in the weightlifting club. It's just amazing to see. And he speaks to my leadership group whenever he comes back.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. You know what I mean?
Starts on the wrong foot and then boom.
The crazy part is he wasn't there 5 minutes. He kicked the kid out of my leadership group because he was disrespectful. I was like, Alfie, I go, it can't be that strict. I mean, I said, and then so I had to somehow get that kid to come back, but he was like, you're not going to disrespect Mr. Power, get out. And I was like, oh my God, what just happened here? But it was interesting watching him grow as a young man and just doing great. And it's just a wonderful feeling to know that, yeah, you're not going to change them all and you're not going to impact all of them, but the few that you do really, really well. Really well.
It's kind of like, and it's, I don't know how I would deal with it. And I do think about this, like in seats like yours, or like you talked about when you were helping out people and someone killed themselves, or back at the beginning, like people in substance abuse. It's like, you can think of it as you lose some people and you're human. You do. You want to help everyone. Yeah. You want them all to be better and go kill it and be a billionaire and have a great life and give it all back. Like but that's not real. Yeah. There's people who make it and people who don't. And I think the hopeful way to look at it is, instead of just like, all right, well, we didn't get through to those 4. Hey, this one we did.
Yes.
What did we do well there? And if you're evaluating that and it's clear with your life's work here, like you give a shit. Yeah. You do all different things for these kids. And if you look at it that way and then see these successes continue to happen, and then you have relationships with them far beyond them ever being in school. Yeah. And they make these lives that they can all point back to like this one thing. Yeah. Like, wow, that day. Yeah. You knocked my phone out of my hand and it changed my life. You hear stories like that. That's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And that's like, if I were you, I hope that's how you focus on it, because I'm sure it's hard to, when you take some L's, but when you see the kids, like, is Alfie's his name? Yeah, Alfie. Yep. When you see that, it's got to be like, damn, we're really doing something here.
He was my biggest surprise, I would say, because I didn't know he would be that kind of leader. But I didn't pick up on the cue that wants to be a Marine. Marines are leaders.
Yeah.
So I didn't equate the two at the time, but man, very, very strong in his values, even though he came from a rough background. But he did have core values that he believed in, and he stood by.
Where do you think he got those?
You know, I really couldn't tell you. I mean, he did suck up the ideas that we were putting into the leadership group. Like, he was one that, oh, that makes sense. I like that.
But you're saying before that, even he had some sort of.
And you know what? Maybe it was his grandfather. He did talk about his grandfather a lot.
That happens.
Might have been his grandfather.
That one.
You know, there was, you know, what you see a lot of times with those type of individuals. Grandparents are really important.
Yes,
really important. Sometimes they're picking up all the, you know, the mess that's been created. And sadly, by their own children, they're picking up the mess that their own children.
Such a wild thing.
Yeah, and you think about that, like, but
then they're great with the kid. But
but it's their grandchildren, so they're trying to take care of them. But yeah, he was a great leader. There was another one that had a speech impediment that people used to. He was a huge individual too, like 6 foot something, probably weighed 270. He could literally
make fun of him for it.
People used to make fun of him, and he would always say, "Mr. Palmucci, I'm gonna punch that kid's face in." And
that sounds like a death wish.
And I would say, "You can't do that. You can't do that.
You might kill him."
And my first thing with him was it was a behavior transition group. We don't have them no more, but that was one of the things when I first got there, and it was behavior transition group. So they're trying to transition their behavior to better behavior. So they were in a separate room where separate teacher where they went over certain things, and I would come in and work with them, and I would have them sign in. And he's like, "Oh, I'm not signing in." And I go, "Oh, you're signing in, dude." And he goes, "Nope, not doing it." I said, "Sign the paper," like that to him. And you know, same thing. Started off a little rough, but I wore him down. Love him to death. His pictures on my wall. They're all the big success. I got pictures on my wall in my office, and he's been gone for a long time. And I heard he's doing well. And oh God, the stuff that he endured was, you wouldn't want a human being to endure some of the things he endured. And I look at the wall and I go, wow, he was so fun to be around. So fun to be around. Another great leader. Became a great leader.
Yeah.
And he ended up getting this nickname, and he went from being somebody that nobody knew to, by his senior year, people were chanting his name in the hallway when he used to walk down the hallway. And he was just like, "I love high school. This is great." But the nickname was developed in the super leadership group, which we had a great leader, a young man named Frank Wyszynski. He's a police officer in Pennsville, great wrestler, one of the most outstanding leaders ever to go through Pennsville. And great family. Mom would help me out with the drug and alcohol and you know, promoting, you know, good, healthy behaviors in the town. Dad's a great human being. His influence on this individual was amazing. And he learned from him. And like I said, you want to mix these groups with all types. You know, you want that good leader in that group because you want them to learn from him. They go, "Wow, I would love to be like Frank. Look at him. He's built great. You know, he's got everything going on, and he cares about me.
And this was a weekly thing you did?
A weekly thing.
So where does it tie in to this program you have with the kids with detention that we alluded to? Because this is awesome.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll take you back.
Okay.
So the whole weightlifting thing came about when I was like 14. So Rocky movie comes out, the one-arm push-ups, cracking the eggs, you know, throwing them down, protein. And, you know, I was a skinny, at the time, it was a 102-pound weight class. And I'm like, oh, I can't stay 102 pounds, which my son ended up wrestling 106 as a freshman. Yeah.
How tall was he then?
My son was only 5'3".
Okay.
I was bigger, but I sucked down there because I wanted the spot. I wanted to get a spot on varsity.
Because he's like 5'11" now? 6 foot?
He's 5'9" now. He's 5'9", 5'10".
He looks tall.
Yeah, he's pretty tall. And so I said, I got to do something because I'm scrawny, I'm weak, I'm losing matches. So I got to get into something. And I got into like just picking up some weights upstairs. My dad was in the Navy, and my dad lifted weights and showed pictures of him looking great. I'm like, I want to be like my dad. I want to be like Rocky. I want to be, and then
You didn't go straight to the steroids?
So I go, wow, Arnold Schwarzenegger was big at the time, you know what I mean?
He was an icon before he was an actor too.
Yes.
Like as a weightlifter.
Yeah, and if you get in weightlifting, you would, that's who you admired.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Charismatic, that type of thing. So I start lifting. My record goes through the roof from one year to the next. Obviously, I go up 3 or 4 weight classes, and I said, you know what? There's something about this sport that I love. So I met up with another guy. I played baseball. So I played football, wrestled, and played baseball. Baseball disappeared because I meet this other guy named Rich Bunda, another weightlifter, good pitcher. We're out in the outfield looking around. Gnats are flying by. He only pitched, and I played outfield. And I was like, he looks at me, he goes, you want to quit baseball? Lift weights all the time? I go, that's a great idea. Next day, we don't come back. And
so you got right into weightlifting.
So I go right to his house.
You're what, 15 now?
About 15. Yeah, 15. And you go to his house. He's got the Arnold arm blaster, and we're doing curls in there. And we finally come to the agreement, like after about 3 or 4 months, like we need more. So.
Oh, did that go out?
Oh no, I got it now. It's back. It's back. Yeah.
Okay.
So we decide, you know what? We're going to go to a hardcore gym. And we decided to go to this gym in Trenton called Man's World. Of all names, Man's World. And so my dad goes, you're crazy. That's in the heart of Trenton. You do know that you might not come home every night. And we're like, whatever. I'm like, whatever, Dad. Sure enough, my car was broken into probably 5 times, 6 times. Stole my radio every time. Stole my dashboard one time.
That used to be a thing. They'd go in and they'd rip the radio out.
Yep. So they literally ripped the whole radio out. And then they got the faceplate thing. See, I got the faceplate thing where you took the faceplate with you. So they wouldn't steal the radio no more because you needed the faceplate.
Oh.
Yeah, so.
That's some chestnut checker shit right there.
Oh, yeah. But they did steal the dashboard. I don't know why they stole my whole dashboard. They ripped the whole dashboard out. It was gone. And, it wasn't the best of area, but that is where I met a very different environment of people. I had different races, Puerto Rican, Black, Asian. So you had all these different, races, nationalities, religions, and everybody had a common cause. It was to lift weights, be strong, and get big. And that's all everybody cared about. And everybody supported each other. And when you went in a bodybuilding show or a powerlifting show, they all came out and supported. They didn't care whether you were white, Black, Asian, Puerto Rican.
Right. You
were family. And guess what? A lot of these individuals, I saw a guy get arrested in the gym one time. He's doing flies. They come in and they handcuff him. We're like, oh my God, Joe just got arrested. He's in the middle of doing flies. Like, come on, let the guy finish his routine. You know what I mean? Oh,
what was he get arrested for?
You know what? Nobody knew.
No one knew.
No, but what I will tell you is the gym owner had what he called the wall of shame. So when you got arrested, he cut out your picture and he put you on the wall. He still loved you, but his premise was,
well, at least that guy had the fly on there while he was on the wall. He had the best picture of all of them.
Yeah. So I mean, his whole idea was, I'm going to shame you to be a better person. But what I will tell you, he would give people money when they needed money. He would let people sleep. He had, apartments over top of the gym. It was in a house, by the way. This was a dungeon.
Oh, it was in a house.
It was in a house, literally a house. And you'd walk across the floor, and he would just throw a carpet over a hole that went down into the crawl space. And like, you twist your ankle. But they're like, and then like I go to my bike, I go, yo, Rich. I go, what is that? He pulls it back. He goes, oh, the floorboard's broken. There's a hole. Goes down to the, you know what I mean? He goes, he just threw the carpet over top of it,
on
right?
top.
And everything was, he always seen him out there. He had his little toolbox. He was fixing stuff on his own, and stuff was pretty dilapidated. But what I will tell you is the equipment is all you needed to be big. What it came down to is if you trained hard and you had good people that trained hard around you, and everybody was motivating you all the time and screaming and yelling and telling you could do more, you were going to get big no matter what. You didn't need that, Planet Fitness type thing where everything's perfect. You can't scream. You can't have chalk. Come on.
Don't they have like the alarm or something?
They ring the bell or whatever. The alarm. I mean, come on.
That's the worst.
It's so far against what
that's not what it's about.
Lifting's about and fitness is about. And so going there, I learned a lot about just life. I learned a lot about different people. And so I fell in love with lifting. So when I got out and got into, to college, and then I decided, towards the end of my first, degree, my bachelor's degree, I said, I'm going to compete. I'm going to be Mr. New Jersey. And
I didn't know you competed. If you're looking to search the web privately and not have all these websites track you when you leave, check out my friends over at Privado VPN. The reason I love Privado is because while I'm using it, I don't even know it's there. The speed is absolutely the same. I keep all the convenience that I'm used to, and I get internet privacy along the way. So if you use that link for Privado in my description, it is going to take you to my landing page on the site, and you will see a plan for $4.99 a month. It is the same one I use. You will get your privacy, you will keep your speed, and you will love it. So check it out.
Yeah, so I competed 23 times in a 3-year period. And I got to tell you how hard. I mean, listen, we worked hard.
This is bodybuilding.
Bodybuilding, yes. I didn't really do power, even though I was pretty strong. I mean,
bodybuilding is torturous.
Torturous. I mean, the pain you have to put yourself through. So me and this guy, Rich Bonda, he loved bodybuilding too. And I ended up winning in New Jersey in 1988, win the whole New Jersey.
Wow.
And it was in Atlantic City, amazing thing. I'd worked so hard. I lost the first year, went there, took second. I'm like, I'm going back, I'm winning this thing. And you just know, you're looking at pictures or watching film, you're like, well, my legs need to get bigger. Well, I need to squat more. Mm-hmm. I need to do more reps. I need to do more sets. And that's what taught me about discipline.
Oh, God, yeah.
Setting goals and objectives and working for something. I mean, sports did too, but this was kind of like, it was very similar to wrestling. It was an individual thing. Yeah, you had a partner, but the partner wasn't helping you out there.
It's not their body up on the stage.
Yep. And the body, once you got up on stage, was produced earlier, right? You had to produce that. All the hard work, that was just what was left on the body when you go out to compete. And so
it starts when you wake. It's everything.
Yeah,
I mean, down to the water intake and counting every single macro. I mean, it is intense shit.
Well, what I will tell you, I was training 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours at night.
Yeah.
6 days a week, 1 day recovery.
Now, what would you do 3 days a week, like heavy in the morning, and then like just basically shaping exercises at night with some cardio?
What happens is when you get to competition phase, which is 3 months out, everything changes. The heavy weight goes out the window, and you going higher reps as you get towards the show. And then obviously the diet change. It reminded me of wrestling, and that's the part that I really didn't love about wrestling was cutting weight. I mean, I cut from 195. I wanted to make middleweight because I knew I could win that class. And then by the time you weighed in the night before, by the time the night show came, I was back up to about 190 pounds. Yeah. So I put 15, 18 pounds on. So I'm not a middleweight no more. I'm in the middleweight class, but I'm not a middleweight no more.
Crazy how that works.
Yeah. I mean, and you know what? You get the idea from being a wrestler.
Yeah.
So wrestlers
and boxing,
like boxers do the same thing.
My one buddy he's 6'3", yoked, pro fighter, fights it. Now he might fight at the 167, or I think 167, 168. But every fight he's done has been at the 162. It's 161 or 162. Yeah. And he's a genetic specimen. Yeah. He has no problem that last week getting right to it and not going crazy to do it. Yeah. The last 24 hours is tough just because you can't really drink.
Yeah.
But when he fights, 14 pounds more the next night.
Yep.
And he didn't eat shit at all. It's just like your body puts it on. When McGregor fought Floyd, you remember they had the weigh. I think they also had the weigh in, and maybe it was like 161, 162. Yep. McGregor fought him at 174 the next day. It's kind of counterintuitive to me.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the one thing about it is, even though I think a lot of that shit, especially when it comes to fighting, which is different than bodybuilding, it's not good for you. Wrestling, it's not good for you. Not to say it's good for you with bodybuilding, but at least with bodybuilding, once you do it, it's strictly like, so you stand up there and you know, do your show and make the moves. You're not sitting there ripping someone's head off or something like that. You know, it's not, your life's not in danger.
You're not getting any brain damage or anything like that and stuff like that, you know.
So you were Mr. New Jersey though.
That was a great. I still got the trophy down in my weight room.
That's
my son
hilarious.
looks at it all the time. It's kind of funny. I took second in the Mr. International that year, which was kind of a disappointment because I actually thought I could win that.
Mr. International?
Mr. International, which was
You
a big
just skipped the Mr. National?
Well, they had Mr. USA, and then they have nationals, and you could turn pro. But I knew that was a whole nother environment. That's a whole nother story. You know what I mean? Of just chaos. But
It's not really long. And correct me if I'm wrong here with your opinion if it's different, but it's not really like, if you go to be a professional bodybuilder, let's say you put in like 15, 20 years of that, there's no way that's good for you.
No. Listen, the wear and tear and the amount. Listen, it's a different environment today. I don't even follow it no more because I think it's kind of grotesque. I thought physiques were actually pleasing. You know, Arnold's physique was a pleasing physique because he didn't look abnormal. He just looked different.
Well, what doesn't help is like the like brown tanning oil they put on every. I mean, it's kind of weird looking. I look at it, I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's enough. Thank you.
Yeah.
But yeah, back in the day, and I guess Arnold, he wasn't just bodybuilding. He was setting records as a weightlifter. He was a power lifter.
Yes.
I mean, that was his
him
main.
and Franco Colombo.
Yeah, that was his main calling card. And he was like, before he was the actor, I mean, so many people apparently don't realize this, but he was like the thing.
Yeah.
Like he was the guy.
Yeah.
So you looked up to him big time.
I always admired the things that he did. He was able to reinvent himself. That was an amazing thing of what the guy did from different genres, going right up the line. If he put his head to something, he was going to do it.
Yes.
He was going to change people's minds on how they saw that. Like, he literally was the reason why movies changed and Stallone got what he got. And then The Rock is living through the basically the pathway that Arnold started.
Yes.
With Conan the Barbarian. You know, they wanted a big guy, and then most of the action movies used big guys at that time, and you know, it was a different time. So that was something I really enjoyed, and then I can still remember when I finished my master's, I wanted to treat myself. So I didn't have no money. You know, my dad was a construction worker, mason, block, bricklayer guy. You know, he worked very hard for the things that he had. And, you know, college is expensive. And I bought a flight to California, to Muscle Beach. Like, I had no place to stay. So I jump on a plane as my present to go out to California by myself. Don't know nobody out there, right? I call my buddy at the airport. I go, your ex-girlfriend still lives out there. You think I could stay with her? And he goes, oh, we broke up. She moved to San Francisco. I go, what?
Oh, no.
I'm like, who am I going to stay with? I didn't really have money for a hotel. Like, I didn't even, in my mind, I was young. I was, 24 years old. I'm like, I don't know nothing about, booking hotels and all that. And you didn't have online
pre-internet,
stuff.
yeah.
And I'm like, so he goes, you know what? She has an older friend that lives out there that may put you up. And I'm telling you, I was 24 at the time. Yeah, 24, because I finished a master's and I had to do the internship. So I was 24. And I didn't know this lady from Adam, right? And I could still remember it was the Olympics, there was Olympics that year, and the Summer Olympics. And I stayed on her couch. She went to work every day. I had a key to the house. I could have robbed her house. I could have done anything. I could have been some crazy person. And I came and went as I wanted. I had a rental car, and she didn't charge me. I left her $100 and a bouquet of flowers, and I never saw her again. And so that was my whole where I stayed, which was bizarre because I'm sleeping on a couch.
What's this, like, how long was it?
How long did I stay?
Yeah.
5 days. So I go.
All right, so it wasn't like 2 years.
No. Listen, only a 5-day trip, right? I couldn't afford to do anything else. So I go to Venice Beach. So the whole premise was I really care about the Hollywood Walk and all that stuff. You know what I mean?
You wanted to go to Gold's Gym.
I wanted to go to the Gold's Gym and train at maybe World's Gym. And I wanted to see Arnold. And believe it or not, Lou Ferrigno was training for his comeback.
There's a throwback.
Yes. For his next comeback to the Olympics. And I can still remember him on the leg press with like 1245s on each side. He couldn't even put any more on. Just screaming at the top of his lungs, pushing that weight. And the crazy part was a guy from Man's World Gym that was kind of like, no, I would say that he found trouble a lot. And he moved to LA, and I ended up seeing him in the gym. I ended up training with him. And so New Jersey's in California. I go there. I'm experiencing this wonderful thing. To me, that was everything at the time. I'm experiencing Gold's Gym, pumping iron, all these things. I end up meeting the owner that owned Gold's Gym at the time. End up just picking his brain because he owned multiple Gold's Gyms across the country. He ended up selling it for multi-millions of dollars. His name was Ed Connor. Really good dude. Ended up, I almost ended up doing a franchise with Gold's Gym.
Is that what it is? That's a franchise?
They had franchise. At the time, it was really big. He ended up selling it. It's not, because there's so many other copycats now. But I remember him because I picked his brain about business. I was one that I wanted to know why people were successful. And I wanted to know how you became successful.
Successful with the gym is a good place to start. That's hard to do.
And he did a great job. And he kept telling me, Don, you can't, your square footage can't go over this because that's where you're paying the money. You're paying for square footage, and your numbers have to be this. And you know that this many people are going to sign up and they're not going to come. So that was just a wonderful, 5 days of my life going out there and seeing Muscle Beach and experiencing it. And by the way, the water was cold as shit. Oh my God. Oh my God, that water's so cold. Dude,
what time of year?
Oh, towards the summer.
Really?
It's not the warmest out there, believe it or not. The water's not real warm out there.
I've never been west of Pennsylvania, so that's like a foreign country out there.
It was a great trip. And that whole thing, that started my whole love for lifting and loving it. And I said, this is going to be part of my life. And by the way, everybody's much fitter out there than they are over here.
Yeah. Let's bookmark that. We're going to come back to that. Yeah.
Different. Very different.
Miami, same thing.
Yes.
You go down there.
Yes.
I love Miami.
Yes.
It's a beautiful place.
Yes. And so that was what transitioned me into my rest of my life. I knew I was always going to be involved in some form, some way of lifting. I love the discipline about it. I love that, it made you feel good. When you felt bad, you had a bad day, you go to the gym, you feel great.
It's the greatest stress relief ever.
Yep. Endorphins. You're releasing endorphins. You know what I mean? And just all the little things that I took with me through life. You're studying. You're stressed out. You got this exam. Well, I'll go hit the gym and come back and study again. Changes the way you feel while you're studying at nighttime. You feel you accomplished something. It's positive. And I kept saying, I'm going to take this premise and I'm going to take this with me for the rest of my life. And then everything I ever did, I always somehow pushed weightlifting, fitness, from my soccer teams, my college soccer team that I coach.
I would hope with that, of course.
Yeah. But believe it or not, because, soccer is a lot of running, not so much upper body.
Fitness, the general theme, though. Yeah.
But going back to then, that's what kind of like, when I finally got to the school system, and I've been there 11 years, and leaving, being a therapist, you can only help them within that half an hour or hour, depending on what your therapy session is. Obviously, the longer the therapy session is and the more therapy the quicker that you're going to change behavior, right? So some kids, I only had them every 2 weeks because I had too many kids. I was the only child out.
You're not on the ground with them all the time. Now you're on the ground.
Yes.
You're saying with this.
So with going to the school, I said, because everything is sourced out. Like, I don't have time to just do counseling sessions all day. That's the guidance department. And and they're not, a lot of them aren't really therapists. They're guidance counselors. They brush on the topic of issues in their lives or family issues or mental health. And then we source out to a place that I worked, like the Healthcare Commons place. Right. And so I said, so where can I have more exposure with these kids and where can I change them? And that was through leadership groups. That was through the after-school gym. The after-school gym happened to be the biggest changing agent, I think, than any of the other things that I did.
And so you would do, if I understood this correctly, when kids would get in trouble, and this is something you do actively now, you give them the alternative that instead of going to detention, they get to come lift with you.
Yes, and let me back that up a little bit. So the vice principal handles discipline. I do not. My job is to change behavior through the school, all 5 schools, which are from K through 12. So what she does is she brings them down and they have infractions, and so they have detention after school. You can go sit in a room and do nothing and really not better your life at all, in my opinion, which is fine because that's part of a consequence. Or you can choose to come to the after-school weightlifting club where I'm going to teach you values. I'm going to teach you discipline. I'm going to teach you how to work hard. And I'm going to put you through the hardest workout you've ever been through.
Yeah, and you know what's interesting, though? In a way, I'd almost give it more credit than that. It's not so much you have to teach them that. Of course, you're teaching them what to do. Yeah. If someone goes in there, they haven't lifted. You're going to show them exactly, here's how a workout works, here's what we're doing, you're going to push them and all that. But once they get used to that, or if they've done it before and now it becomes a habit and something they like, the actual environment that you cultivate is what teaches them. Because it's not, you got a bunch of kids in there. You're not standing over every single one at all times. You're building this place for them to come as an escape. And this escape is not Netflix and chill. No disrespect to Netflix, but you're getting only a certain amount of whatever out of that. This, you are chemically affecting your body and also affecting your physicality, how you feel, your confidence, how you carry yourself. Like sometimes I don't know why people don't think this way. It seems very common to me, and I imagine it'd be very common to you, but the idea of like having limbs and not using them, I do not understand this. Like just stick me in a wheelchair. Like what I was given arms to lift. You know what I mean? And you get that. There's hard. It's hard. You get sore and whatever. But you actually learn to love that. You learn like you get. It's probably one of the few healthy addiction type things that you can do, because also with this addiction, your body can only take so much of it, right? So you kind of have that. In my case, 90 minutes, 2 hours a day where you're fucking in there. And then, when you're done, now you're like, oh, I can get on with my day now. And these kids, you're teaching them this at 14, 15, 16. Like, shit, I really picked up my first weight for real, when I was 20. And I'm like, I'm going to do that again. I wish when I was like 15, I didn't get a ton of detentions, but I wish like even with something else, there was like, oh, if you're not on the football team, you still want to go do that. That's so cool.
And I think the interesting part is this is where, first off, once they come in, I'm like, so what'd you do? And very nonchalant, like, what'd you do? Oh, okay. All right, gotcha. All right. You don't understand. You're not supposed to do that, right? And we talk. Kind of like more on a comical side, like, back and forth banter, and then as the day goes on, I start asking questions, like only when I know I can get in and get the right answers to build that relationship, build that trust, all that. And then that's where I start to understand them, and they start to it's the craziest thing, but they see me as just another person, just somebody that's there. They don't see me as a person with a dress shirt on. They don't see me as an administrator. And then they're going, oh my God, he could do this kind of weight? Like, dude, this guy's crazy. Like, and so they feel comfortable around me.
They got to respect that too.
And they just feel comfortable. And after that, I'm telling you, they say hi to me in the hallway all the time. Most of them come back. Or they get in trouble again and they're back down there again. And that's just, like I said, habits are built through constant doing the same thing over and over again, we get them back again. And then I say, like, dude, or in the morning when I'm always out there in the hallway in the morning and I say, good morning, everybody. It's one of my things. And that was one of my goals I wanted to do when I first got there. When I first took over, I wanted to be more active in the body while they're moving around and stuff like that. So now I literally go, yo, you coming to the gym today? Or I call people over right to me. I'm like, come on over here. Like, where you been? I haven't seen you in the gym. And it's almost they're disappointed. They know I'm disappointed, and then they end up showing up. But I have to constantly beat on them from a standpoint, not literally. I have to constantly beat the drum saying, you need to come, you need to come, you need this. And I've learned more about what's going on in the town from a standpoint of what kind of drugs are being used, what parties are going on.
They tell you this in the weight room?
Oh, yeah, they tell me everything. They tell me everything. And listen, the party thing, obviously that's everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But, the big thing, my message for them is to be safe no matter what.
Yeah. There's a huge difference between, some giant like ecstasy ring going on and some kids, having some good Saturday night parties. Yep. And that humanizes it too, when you get that.
And what they have to understand is that, obviously I'm not promoting that they do any of this stuff, but some of them are going to do it. The most important thing is that they don't drive while they're under the influence. They don't make decisions that are going to change their lives, completely change their lives. You know what I mean? And so that's where I start to educate them, about rights and wrongs and how you should do things and when you should do things and when the right time is. And they respect that. They really do. They respect that. They respect. I'm not talking down to them. I'm talking with them. And that's a big difference. I'm not talking down to them. I'm talking with them. And
I like how you said it like that.
Yeah. And I want them to converse with me. There's times where we went back and forth and, they may disagree with something. I'm fine with that, but hear me out. And then I come back to it. You know what I mean? Where I try to educate them in a more positive way, where the way they're seeing it isn't reality. They're seeing it as a kid. I'm trying to make them see it as a more mature adult. And it's just interesting that literally they trust me. It's an amazing environment. And I tell them, like, listen, I'm here to make you a better human being. Understand that. And, every Wednesday I talk about a certain individual in the world. Like the topic may be Kobe Bryant and how Kobe Bryant lived his life with sports.
Like in the weight room you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah. So, the joke right now is because everybody's watching, Netflix, and my whole thing is Cobra Kai. And so they all call me Sensei Palmucci.
Oh, yeah.
I said, everybody, we call it falling in. So everybody falls in and they go, yes, sir, Sensei Palmucci. So we relate things to movies. We make
That's
everything.
Good.
That's
good.
Yep. And we have certain sayings, I make them chant, I can, I will, I must. Things like that.
That's the Eric the hip hop preacher. I can, I will, I must.
Yep,
I say that to myself. I love that.
And so I try to educate them every Wednesday on a certain value or topic, whether it's, one time I talked live for 15 minutes on growth mindset, on how you harness growth mindset and how you do it and how you change your life.
When you say growth mindset, can you tell people what you mean?
So growth mindset is somebody that's always opening their mind to get better. Most people, when they see things, they think they know everything about a topic. And listen, I got players that literally just don't get better because they don't open their mind to learn that position at another level. Maybe from a level of being a coach, where then that changes the growth mindset. And so my whole thing is, what you think you know is really usually not what you know,
Yep.
right? And so my whole premise is, if you just open your mind and listen to me, somebody that's 55 years old, that's been there, done that, made mistakes. I made the mistakes you're going to make. I already made those mistakes. And you open your mind up to just doing this way instead of that way, and see how you feel. And it's just
I'm curious though. Sorry to cut you off,
Yeah.
but on this point, do you? Some of it's very common sense shit. Like
it is.
You've been, because you've been there, done that.
Yeah.
But do you also find yourself on the other end of that sometimes, where you're like, you know what? I don't know what an example would be, but shit, that might actually, maybe they're doing this better than we did it.
Oh, no doubt.
See, that's good.
You know what's amazing? Because, I do groups and everything I do. I do groups even with my college soccer team. And they'll bring up stuff and topics that I went, look, one time they go, we should change the formation. I'm like, to what? And they're like, we want to play a 4-2-3-1. I'm like, well, we don't have the clientele for that. They're like, we feel we can play it, and we can play it better than the 4-3-3. So I went to the head coach. I said, you think we could try the 4-2-3-1? Just do it in a scrimmage game. They played phenomenal. We never stopped playing that formation the rest of that year.
That's cool.
And we won game after game. But they saw it. They felt it. But to me, if I didn't have a growth mindset, I'm staying with the hardcore Don Palmucci, head coach Jeff's 4-3-3. We know best. You can't tell us. And we don't grow as a team that year, right? But going back to that, I mean, another topic was, I had everybody in the group read The Energy Bus and how to harvest energy.
I'm not familiar with that.
Oh, you got to read it, The Energy Bus.
Who wrote that?
Gordon, last name Gordon.
Okay.
And so the whole premise of The Energy Bus is about a guy that's a negative guy, and he has some bad things happen to him. He's not doing well with his marriage. He's not doing well at work, and his car breaks down. So he has to take this bus, and this older lady is just, she keeps pushing about being more energetic and positive, and he starts to change his life. She explains to him why you like that. And so he ends up changing his life through energy, being more energetic, being more like just attacking things with energy and being more upbeat. And his whole life's changed. So that's basically the small short of the story. He ends up becoming a better husband. He becomes a better, supervisor in his job, those type of things. And it just changes his life. So we read that. So I'm trying to teach him little things that may seem small, but could change your life drastically.
You also got to put it in a way that makes them want to hear it.
Yes.
You see a lot of this motivational burnout with stuff, because guys get on there, they post the same 30-second clip on Instagram every day. It's like, all right, we get it, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's so much in your face. But a lot of the themes that you'll see from people who are reputable, I'll say at least, and know what they're talking about, it's very real. Like, I love that. I'm going to check out that book. I'm such a believer in that stuff. I'm not one of these guys sitting there lighting sage when there's negative energy in the room or anything. I'm not like that. But shout out Kyrie Irving. Yeah. But I am one of those guys who looks at it like the way you project is what you will get back. Not the same way you do it. Everyone's different. Yes. But look at the job I have to do. Yeah. If you walked in here today and I'm like, all right, Don, we're going to talk about kids. Yeah. All right, I'm gonna roll the camera. Yeah, you're gonna tense up a little bit. You're gonna be like, okay. And then if I'm not asking any questions and I'm not like genuinely curious or like arguing a point to be like, well, wait, what does that even mean? You're not engaged. Yes. But instead, first of all, I invite people in here I want to talk with. That's a key. That helps. Yeah. And then I already want to talk with the person sitting across from me. Yeah. So now they get my energy, and my energy is not gonna be down here. Yeah. It's gonna be up here, and there's serious things to talk about. You get a little lower, whatever. Yeah. There's a way to do it, but you can't expect that what you think needs to happen is going to happen just because you think that's how someone's going to be. You have to create that environment, and so I think it's great that you're bringing this stuff in through the kids. And I actually think when they hear it in an environment that's not just a classroom, right? This is not. This is the weight room after school. You're the cool guy.
Yep.
In this way.
Exactly.
And you're also like for the detention kids, you're the alternative.
Yes.
So it's like, all right, we kind of
I'm supposedly the good alternative.
Right.
Yes,
exactly.
Yeah.
And you're also, it's not on their phone.
Yeah.
Just some dude on the internet.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, wait a second, maybe there's something to this. And then you give them a book. You give them something like, oh, go check it out if you want. And now they're like, you know what? I think I will. Yeah. That's important.
To take it even further, and you're on to a big point. Motivation, it's almost like we've been hit with so much of it now because of social media and technology. So you're seeing it all the time, and they got these programs where you get a quote every day sent to your email. All right, is there any passion behind that? No, it doesn't work. That's my opinion. It doesn't work, and that goes back to when I read all these books. So at Wilmington, so with the girls soccer team, so we read the book, The Energy Bus. So we talked about it every Monday. We went over every chapter. So we're invested in the book. We're invested in talking about it. We're invested in feedback from each other on how we saw it, how we felt about it. And then we had to exemplify these values in the book. So in other words, in practice, whoever showed the most energy for the week got a bus ticket that they put on the back of their locker, right? So you get
a bus ticket.
A bus ticket. So the whole idea was
send them packing.
Well, so the whole idea, right? Think about it. Is the book is about the energy bus. So
it's called. I'm an idiot. I'm sorry.
So
it's called the energy bus.
So on Monday, everybody would get a little piece of paper, and you write the girl that on the team that showed the most energy, whether it was in the game or in the game in practice, motivated people. It was basically an example of what we're trying to do in the book, right? So we count them up. It's this girl, Jane over here. Jane gets the bus ticket. So the bus ticket goes back of the door. And that person, I bought this bus steering wheel on Amazon, got to bring the bus steering wheel onto the field. You led the team out because you're our leader for this week. You earned it. You know what I mean? And then at the end of the year, you got the leadership award.
It's like what's that thing they did? Miami had like the turnover chain.
Yes, I think very similar to that.
Which football? One of the football teams, one of the NFL teams has the energy chain now or something, or like big energy chain. I think the Sixers have it. That's what it is.
Yeah,
I think that shit's pretty cool. It's
I mean, and listen, and no lie, I mean, I got involved in this program called What Drives Winning. It's an amazing. It's a lot of NFL. It's a lot of successful coaches that believe in you develop character, character pushes process then just gives you results. So character is the most important thing. You develop character not only in your students, you develop character on your team. Character then pushes process, which is hard work, discipline, being a good person, being a good teammate. And then what comes? Results. So you're not focused on results because results is just a goal, right? That you may get it, you may not. So you may win the Super Bowl, you may not. But it doesn't give you anything coming to the result. So how do you get to the result? It's through character. It's through the process of hard work, day to day, the grind, being good people, caring about each other, And that's what I learned from What Drives Winning. And it's like I said, it's NFL coaches. It's there was this individual that I met through soccer, Becky Burley. She was the coach of Florida, won a national championship there. She's now coaching the Orlando Pride, the professional team, and wonderful woman. Met her at a soccer conference, talked to her. She actually shared her email with me, and we became somewhat friends and talk. And I would share with her every year what I'm doing at Wilmington, and I'm Wilmington. She's high level Division I, winning national championships, and she loved the things I was doing, and I was just basically learning from her. She was the best of the best. She did this thing called the bench cam that she filmed the bench and how people reacted when they came off the field. Like you get subbed out, and the girl's all mad, and she's walking down, and everybody's getting ready to high five, and she's not even hitting anybody high fives. She doesn't put her penny on to identify that she's a sub, and all the girls start talking, oh my God, look at her, oh my God. So they're not focusing on the game and how they're going to impact the game when they go in. They're worried about this girl over here, that her behavior is not proper, right? And so the bench cam was her way of bringing that girl in, showing her what she did. She didn't even realize she did that, and how she affected the whole team through her behavior in a negative way. And her whole premise of why she did the bench cam was to teach her the proper way. When you got subbed out, you weren't playing well, but you act professional, and then your team plays better. And it's really more, it's not just about you, it's about your team. And it's just an amazing video, that just all these things. And like I said before, like, you want to be around successful people that are doing great things. And she and this guy, Brett Ledbetter, who started this.
That name I know.
Yeah, he's a big motivational guy. He goes and speaks for all the,
I need to see his face.
NFL teams and stuff like that. He's very good. And, that's a growth mindset. Want to learn from them and get better every year, as a coach, as a mentor to students. A lot of the stuff I do with my college soccer team, I do with my students, or vice versa. It worked with the students. It might work with the players. Like, wow. Like,
you're learning from different environments too. Yeah.
And so another great book that we read this year was Chop Wood, Carry Water.
Don't know that one.
Oh, amazing book. And it's another
book?
Chop Wood, Carry Water. And it's about two young boys that want to be archers in Japan, and then the one gets hurt and he's not able, and the other one goes over there. And the whole premise of it is that he just wants to be this famous archer. And the sensei's like, well, that's not how it works around here. There's, we're in a village, and you have to chop wood and carry water because we don't have heat in the winter and we don't have water. And so he's like, I'm not here to chop wood and carry water. And that's all he does. He don't even shoot at all. He's not pulling that bow back at all. But along the way, he's learning all these life lessons on how to be a better human being, and how to handle life, and handle setbacks, and handle things, and handle that. And so that was another book that we read. And then the whole thing is, at the end of the year, one of the girls on the soccer team is going to get a piece of chopped wood with the leadership award on the piece of wood. And same thing, we voted that person to get the award every week. And it just, you have to be passionate about your motivation. It's like anything, because if you just think you're going to motivate people by throwing a quote at them,
no,
come on,
those guys stick out like sore thumbs.
That's not
too.
Gonna work.
They stick out like sore thumbs when you see that.
So I think you have to make them accountable for the motivation from a standpoint that they need to be invested in it. They need to digest it. They need to talk about it. They need to make suggestions on how they want to, maybe use that chapter. So now they're taking ownership to it. And when you take ownership to something, now all of a sudden you remember it better, you follow it better because it's yours, right? And so that's some of the things that we do too. I mean, I love that book too. And the crazy part is my son had me read that book. My son got that book. Your son
recommended that one.
So my son got it from Mark Moore, who I mentored when he was 15, 16. Yeah. He mentors my son, and he tells my son, you need to read this book, Josh. Chop Wood, Carry Water. He reads it, tells me about it. He takes it to his wrestling academy. The wrestling academy reads it and follows the principles and the values of it, and then finally passes it on to me, which then I take it to Wilmington University to have my girls read it, and then I take it back to Pennsville High School for my group, my super leadership group.
See, that right there, that's the circle of life. You see, it starts with you working with your one guy, Mark. That's his name, right? Mark?
Yes.
And he builds that all into his life, and then it eventually comes around because he's working with your son, and then your son gives it to you, and like you just described, it goes on down the line and back around. And to me, like that is pure confirmation that everything you've been working to build in your work throughout your life is paying it forward to you now in the same way. And it's like, you also get to learn through that. Like your kids teaching you something in a way, like, oh, Dad, this book's great. It taught me X, Y, and Z. You need to check this out. Oh, shit. Yes, it does. We're going to check that out.
Yeah.
You know, so like the older I get, the more and more I appreciate, and I've always valued this, but I value it even more now. The more and more I appreciate always learning something from everywhere you look.
Yeah.
Including from places where it's like there's not a single thing to learn from that person. I'll argue that in not having a single thing to learn, you can learn everything not to do. You know? And so being open to that and then being able to even like in your own expertise, get exposed to something where it's like, oh shit, yeah, wow, that's great. That's very, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Gratifying, I would say. Great word. Gratifying, you know?
For sure.
Yeah, and I think, you know, going back to all these little things that tie in to watching these kids transform from being kids that may not be so self-confident through the weightlifting club, through not only is that a little family that they have in there after school every day, but, you know, we're constantly supporting. People are pushing them to levels they've never been pushed before. Because they may not be an athlete. I mean, listen, we had the football players in there. We had the wrestlers in there. We have those type of kids. But we do have a lot of kids that, you know, started with a 5-pound dumbbell. And now they're up to 30s, 35s, 40s. They're actually starting to put some muscle on their frame. They're starting to build self-confidence. They're starting to feel good about themselves. And that just goes through their whole life. Not only does it help them with their academics because they feel good about themselves. They're not sitting there. I mean, that can be overwhelming when you don't feel confident. It affects everything you do.
Oh yeah,
everything.
Oh yeah.
You know, so I think that's the things that a lot of people may not see that I see. I call it the little ducklings because I always get these groups every year of about 8 of them that follow my workout. They like to train with me because it's easy. I set everything up. They just follow. It's the little ducklings going behind me.
Yeah.
I'm the father duckling, right? And they just follow me. They do everything I tell them to do. You know what I mean? And when I tell them to go up and go heavier, they go heavier. When I tell them they're not training hard enough, they listen. And then their wings start to work. And they grow their own wings and they go off on their own with maybe a few that were in the group, or now they're able to lift with the bigger guys.
You know what this isn't? This is important. I just thought of this.
Yeah.
When you go from a 5, that example you gave, the 5-pound dumbbell to a 30-pound dumbbell, you know what that's not?
What's that?
A participation trophy.
Yeah. Exactly.
You either could or you couldn't.
Exactly.
You did it or you didn't. You didn't just like show up and check and sign your name.
Yeah.
It is a visual in this generation now. I'd love to hear you talk about and get your thoughts on this too, because we see it. Everyone gets a goddamn participation trophy for doing everything.
Yeah.
You go in there and you're like, wow, over 8 months I moved from doing, repping out 15 at 10 pounds to repping out 15 at 30.
Yeah.
It's it's there. It's black and white.
Yeah.
That is a huge advantage with all sports, and then especially with what you're doing, because it also, the mental fortitude you have to have to be a consistent lifter every day. It's not like there's a score other than the things you keep track of over time. It's regimented. You do this, then you do that.
Yeah.
You break down your muscle.
Yep.
You come back in, you do it tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's a great point because, you're not going to get to that point unless you're consistent. And that's one of the things I harp on. And some kids, when they don't come all the time, I get on them. I'm old school. I get on them. I'm not going to sit there and I pull them over and I have a conversation with, this isn't going to work. You do understand that, right? It's not how it works. I'm 55. Like, the reason why I'm benching 250 is because I'm here every day, And, like the one kid, he was coming in, and I know his dad well. And he was leaving after 15 minutes. So his nickname was 15-minute last name. Literally, I would turn the music off and call him 15-minute last name. And now he's up to 45-minute last name. And so the goal is to get him to an hour and a half last name. But believe it or not, it works. Like he just is like, dude, I don't want to be 15-minute. I don't want to be the 15-minute guy. But everybody in the weightlifting room has a nickname. One kid, his name's Harry, so we equated him with Harry Styles. So his new nickname became Harry Styles.
That's not a compliment in the weight room.
Not really, but he don't care. He don't care. He's a great kid.
I love Harry Styles. By the way,
he's one of my guys that's in my group, and he's a leader now. His job is to turn the music on every day. His job is to talk to some of the other ones, the ducklings that are not in row, and he gets them in row. And so he's become this kid that's a freshman now, because we have kids from 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. Like middle schoolers allowed to come over. And obviously they don't train heavy, but they train differently, but they're getting the discipline at a young age. And, the middle schoolers find a way to kind of veer off a little bit, and they have to be drugged back over.
Yeah, and there's like the whole thing. It's different for different kids based on their development, but a lot, as a rule of thumb, a lot of weightlifting kind of starts when you're like a freshman in high school. Once you're past that, you're through that 12, 13, 14 where your body's totally changing and everything.
Yes. Yeah.
So I kind of get that. I would think this would be more of a high school thing.
Yeah.
But when the world shut down in March 2020, and you said they put a lock on the gym, this was a while ago.
They chained the doors on the gym. I guess people were trying to get in maybe at nighttime.
Oh, they were trying to work out.
Trying to work out and actually get healthy so you don't die of COVID.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, I think from our standpoint, from a school standpoint, it was what they had to do. I don't know if they wanted to do that, but
fear.
Yeah.
Fear,
governmental oversight saying this is what you have to do. Because we were the first people to open that gym up. I know.
Now, when did you do that?
I would say it was about a year after the pandemic.
Holy shit. Yeah. That was closed for a year.
About a year. Yeah, it was closed about a year.
So you didn't have this program for a year?
No. Did not have it for a year.
Think about that
because
for a second.
Got to understand too, we were staying to 12-15. So, we didn't have full days. And then, so they cut an hour or two off because of lunches. Because here's where governmental oversight now, because you couldn't have the social distancing, so you couldn't have lunches. Yes. So we didn't have enough room in the cafeteria, so we had to cut the days where you ate lunch at home.
Are the kids all still in masks in school now?
The masks are going away. I think the governor did away with it March 7th or something like that. It's coming up.
Oh, thank you, Your Highness.
Our school made it optional.
Good.
So, in other words, I would say the majority. I would say 90% will not wear masks.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Now, when did that start to stop?
What's that?
When did they start losing them?
Losing them?
Losing the masks. Like a lot of the kids.
Listen,
was that something they
I
were
don't know if
about
they ever
early?
had them, to be honest, to where we're at.
Really?
I mean, I would say most of them. I mean, listen.
Sounds like you were in another country, man. This is awesome.
Pennsylvania's it's a great area. I can tell you, I have never had a bad day of going to work there. That's what I could tell you.
Amazing.
I love what I do. I love that town. I love being there. I love those kids. I think they're just great to be around. What I will tell you is the kids were resilient from a standpoint. They did exactly what we asked them to do. Even though it meant putting masks on, everybody went one way down the hallway, and then you had to go up to go back the other way. And then obviously the rules changed as well. Every other rule changed every other day, but our rules got, a little more lenient as the time went on. And I got to tell you, kids still wear their masks up until they know it's going away, and they're still wearing it. They're doing what we're asking them to do, and that tells me they're great kids.
But you said a lot of them aren't.
No, they don't want to. They're very.
Oh, so they are still all wearing them.
They're still all wearing them till the date. Because we got to wait. I think it's March 7th. So
okay,
March 7th, I would say
sense.
90% they'll be gone. What I can tell you, they voiced their opinions that they really don't want to wear them, the majority of them. But they did it because they knew that's what they had to do.
And that's the thing. One of the biggest sources of lack of trust in authority, and by authority, in this case, I'm talking about like parents and teachers and stuff like that, are when you're a kid growing up and your parent or teacher tells you to do something and there's no reason.
Yeah.
There's no logic.
Yeah.
They're just like, dad's having a tough day at work and basically told you to fuck off, right?
Yeah.
And what do you ask? You say, why? And they say, because I said so.
Yeah.
And it's the worst answer ever. And I understand. I'm sure like sometimes
Yeah.
you're like, I really don't want to talk to you right now.
Yeah.
Fine. But like, that is what we've done with the governmental meddling in schools. Because we had data within 6 months of this thing started that said, kids are going to be all right.
Yeah.
Of course, look, someone's going to die. Just like some kid dies of the flu every year at some school somewhere. You can't, there's no zero of anything in a major population. No one wants to see it happen. But what happens is no one wants to be the first to get sued. And so these schools, which by the way, in fairness to the schools, they're also taking orders directly from the government.
Yeah.
The public school system is, they can't make their own decision here.
Yeah.
But it's all being led by fear. And they start, something becomes a habit. It becomes normal. Oh, well, we wear a mask to do this. And then, you're 6 months in and you start to hear from psychologists saying, hey, it's not good for a 5-year-old or a 15-year-old.
Yeah.
It's not helping them, number one. Number two, this is developmentally a problem.
Yeah.
But you don't do anything because you don't want to get sued and it'll work itself out.
Yeah.
Now you're 2 years in.
Yeah.
And I'm glad to see that I'm sorry I misunderstood for a second what you said there. I was going to say it sounded like you were living in a different country because I know how New Jersey is, but I'm glad to see that there has now been enough pressure to push back on that. Because I will tell you, you sit there, you watch the AFC Championship game in Kansas City a month ago, whatever, and it's, 10 degrees out there.
Yeah.
There's 80,000 people in that stadium. Yeah. They're all on top of each other, screaming, yelling, drinking alcohol. 30, 40,000 of those people have kids who are going to school the next day.
Yes.
They're all doing that in that stadium without a mask, but their kids are going to school with a mask on and not seeing each other's faces.
Yep.
What the fuck are we doing?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yep. No common sense. It's not what we do anymore. It's, I don't know, it's power.
But your superintendent, you had said this earlier, your superintendent right away was the guy sending out the letter saying, would you prefer in-person or virtual?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it went through the school board. They sat down and decided through the school board and, how this thing would be written and how it would go out. And I think it was, just a smart way to handle it.
Yes. I haven't heard anything.
Let everybody be a part of this, and I think it worked out really, really well, to be honest. I think it was the best thing, not only for the parents, but for the kids, And we tried to be there in person as much as we could. You know what I mean? Like I said, with a couple setbacks, but they were nothing major. And I just, looking now at, and listen, it's going to be interesting when they take the masks off. Okay, where do we go there? Where's the data then from, now, from then to now, and with the socialization, with the mental health issues? That's a whole nother environment.
Because that's your playing field too.
Yes.
That's literally.
Yes.
That's like a priority.
That you're starting to see a lot more of that now.
Like what?
There's, in my opinion, and listen, I'm hearing that not only just from within the school, but within other parents that I'm, friends with, obviously, with anxiety, depression. And when you think about it, of course you're going to have anxiety when you were told people are dying and kids don't process this stuff real well. No. They just don't, and fear is not a good thing for kids, and then when you start taking away friendships, you take away sports, you take away, like, my son missed like team states last year. Like, they had the best team ever in Kingsway's history in wrestling, and they never got a chance to prove it. And nobody will ever know they were the best team, ever. And obviously we lost a bunch of kids this year, and we didn't make it to the state final this year. And you just start thinking about all the little things that were taken away. My daughter is a Division I soccer player. She missed a whole season. They didn't play at all. At all. And, that's terrible. It's terrible for somebody that's been working since she was 5 years old, to play a collegiate sport at the highest level, and they tell you, "Oh, God, you can't do that." By the way, it's outdoors. It's not, they're not. It's not wrestling, even though wrestling. I know wrestling was okay because my son was wrestling across the country during the pandemic in other states.
He's also 17 years old.
Yes.
He's gonna be all right.
And he never got sick.
Yeah.
Never got sick. So, but going back to the mental health thing, I think in general, this was the icing on the cake because the phone is a very detrimental thing to these kids to start with. And you could go on and talk about that for hours.
Go ahead.
And I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
So in gym class, they get a break. And, say there's 70, 80 kids. They go up to sit, or maybe 50 kids. I'm not sure. They go up to sit in the bleachers on their break. There's not one kid that hasn't grabbed that phone and been like this. And they literally cannot function without it.
And it's all they've ever known, too.
Yes.
We're in that generation
We're in that generation now. Where me, I'm dependent upon my phone, right? But when I go into the gym, I leave my phone in the locker room. Well, the athletic locker room for the coaches, and I don't want it because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to check it. My son's going to. I want to get my weightlifting done. I want to get the weightlifting club done and enjoy it, not worrying about a phone. So you bring the pandemic into it, where okay, the only way they're socializing is through that. Mm-hmm. There's no real socialization. You don't feel somebody's feelings through a text. You don't know what the context isn't there.
Or it could be faked.
It could be fake.
Yeah.
There's so many things. So you force them to go more to the phone, which is already detrimental to their psyche because that's all they live by, and it's all about likes and this and that, and they're controlled through that, and then they don't have any social. They have nothing to work for because none of them, you're a football player, but you have no football season. How many really of them went out and trained? Not many, right?
There's nothing to, and I mean this in a positive way.
Yeah.
There's nothing to compare yourself against every day.
Yes.
To inspire yourself. I'm not talking about comparison culture because God knows they compare themselves on the phone all the time.
Yeah.
But I'm saying there's a thing when you're around other people,
Yep.
With you, they go in the weight room. Mm-hmm. Oh, damn, that dude's putting up 275 today.
Yep.
Shit, I might be able to do that one day. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, let's watch what he does because he's obviously good at this.
Yeah.
I'll do that too. You can sit there and train yourself or work on something yourself, and I do some of it in my job, but look what I get to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I get to sit across from people who have all different types of opinions, beliefs, or perspectives, and then I get to live with that on that content.
Yeah.
And so it's almost like for a living, I have to be in the middle of that. And then just think about kids, suddenly they're taken away from the environment that gives them just exposure to people.
Yeah.
What do you expect?
Yeah. And that's really how you learn.
Yes.
I mean, you don't learn any other way. You're not learning through a phone. You're not learning through a text, how to, react to something that's emotional or, that you have to make split-second decisions on, and how you should live your life. There's so many different, reasons that does not work. That whole virtual learning thing was really not the best environment for kids to learn. But going back to what you were saying, learning from another, there's an individual in the gym and he's religious and he's massive young man. He only lifts, he don't play sports, and he's a leader. He's what I call a leader. He's probably the best leader in the school now. And this individual, God, I think he had 225 on incline the other day, just repping it out. And the younger guys they're looking over.
How old is he?
Oh my God. He is a senior, so he's turning 18. Yeah. So
pretty good.
Yeah. He loves Arnold. I got him when he was in 6th grade, by the way.
6th grade.
And didn't look like that then. Didn't look like that.
Awesome.
I had his brother before that. His brother was a lifter. Didn't take it as serious as he did. and just an amazing young man. In my leadership group, you know, he just goes above and beyond. I can pull him in my office and say, this person's struggling. Can you get to him as a peer and help him out? No problem, Mr. Palmucci, I got you. He goes, I'll take care of that today. And he says hi to kids that nobody says hi to.
That's great.
And he finds out, dude, he comes to me sometimes and goes, yo, this person's doing this and struggling with this, whatever. You might want to talk to him. And like, he's got like major intel on people that are struggling. And he's always there for people. It's an amazing, amazing thing. And listen, believe me, he's the toughest kid in the school. There's no doubt in my mind. The kid can box, the kid's strong. And he just doesn't use it that way. He uses his power. And he talks about the Lord a lot and religion and the word of God and how God has, you know, a plan for him and to affect people. And it's an amazing thing. But like I said, I had him since sixth grade and I told him all the stories. I told him many stories of my life. He's one that had a growth mindset that sat in my office and listened. I talked about building my house, building it from ground up. And he's like, oh, my dad's a contractor. My dad's a concrete guy, whatever.
Wait, you built your house?
Yeah. Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah.
No shit.
Yep. I did everything. I did everything from dug the hole to cut the trees down to laid the brick. Me and my dad laid the brick.
Wow.
The only thing we didn't do is we didn't do the roof. My dad had guys that he knew that did the roof, and we didn't frame it. I got a really cheap price on framing, and I was like, it ain't worth it for me to do the framing.
Wow.
But we did everything else. I mean, I put the lights.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was. So another story, you know, my dad obviously was a concrete brick block guy from Italy, that type of thing. And
where was he from in Italy?
You know, I don't know because
it's a bad answer, Don.
Grandpop was from there. So I'm not sure if it's Calabria. I'm not sure.
You got to find that out.
Yeah, you know, I don't really talk too much about because, you know, my dad was never over there, so my dad was an American born. But so my dad had all the trades, and I remember I was telling my dad, I said, I'm going to buy a lot in South Harrison, and I'm going to build my own home. He goes, dude, you're crazy. It's a lot of work. I don't know if you'll figure this out. And I'll end up doing all the work. And I remember the first day I laid out the hole, and I had the transom out here, and I'm calling him up on the phone going, Dad, what do I do now? You know what I mean? But he was very helpful. I'm his first son, so he taught me a lot about I went to work at a very young age, laying brick, laying block. I worked my way up from mixing the cement to being a block layer to laying brick, you know, that whole 9 yards. And that's another thing of just learning discipline, being in a hardcore family.
Yes.
But
doing hard work too.
Doing hard work, and you know what? My daughter has a lot of that.
That's good.
She's one of those grinders that just gets it, and yeah, my son's a hard worker too. I mean, listen, I got fabulous kids that, you know, I would imagine my son will be a Division I wrestler here soon. That I taught him discipline. I taught him that if, you know, hard work is the only way you're going to get stuff. And I mean, we have a gym in the basement, kind of like, you know, you guys have, and they're down there all the time. Friday nights, my daughter and my son are lifting weights on Friday nights. I'm down there with them. Like, you know what I mean? And, you know, I honestly think both my kids were great at sports because of repetition. Mm-hmm. We believe in repetition. We believe in constantly training, whether it's the fitness side of it or it's the actual technique side of it. For instance, my daughter, you know, soccer player, foot skills. She did foot skills since she was 7, 8 years old. That's why she's unbelievable on a soccer ball.
Right.
And then she got into the lifting, and now she loves lifting. And when she went to East Carolina, she was the strongest girl on the team, and she was only 125 pounds.
Wow.
And she killed it there. Like, she was, you know, great at that. My son, you know, kind of, they followed my footsteps in the lifting thing. My son loves lifting, you know. We go to the gym together. Every once in a while we'll go to the Atilis Gym down in Belmar because it's
that's the dude, right?
Yeah, he's running for office too. Yeah.
He's running for office now?
He's running, I don't know if he's running for senator or what he's running for. But yeah,
that's the dude, Ian Smith, who people listening, you probably saw him. He was the guy who went to war with Murphy like 2 months into the pandemic. It was kind of funny.
Yeah, they kicked the doors down.
Yeah.
Yep.
And to his credit, you know, his whole point was, this is a place for people to work out. We're trying to have healthy people. This is bullshit. And, you know, he's definitely loud about everything he thinks. But as far as like some basic common sense, I mean, you needed people like that. And some of the things that they did to him, they like drowned his bank account and just like took it.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Crazy shit, man.
What
Crazy
I will tell
shit.
you is, you know, me and my son will go there like once every couple weeks, you know, and, you know, you don't pay to go there because I don't know with the whole legality thing or what's going on there. But, you know, obviously you get your temperature taken, you fill out the form, whether you have any COVID, you know, symptoms, that type of thing. I will say that is the cleanest gym. And I've been in a lot of gyms.
Yeah.
I mean, everything from, I've been in Gold's Gym in California to World Gym in California to Gold's Gym in Hawaii to Man's World, which was in a house, right? In a house where my dashboard would get stolen. To, you know, Atilis Gym where, I mean, everybody got a spray bottle when you walk in, and there was paper towels everywhere. So when
I saw a video of the system.
Yeah.
It's like when it was first starting. It was like 5 steps. It was pretty quick, but it was like.
Yep. And then they have some kind of hydro stuff
Yep.
blow out. Listen, I can tell you this. I felt very safe training there. Very safe. I felt it was clean. It was safe. And when we were there, we felt it was an awesome place to be. You know, obviously there's some massive human beings in that place.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like it. I don't even know if they were that big out in LA, to be honest. It was
really
very comparable. Yeah.
You got that Jersey Guido juice, baby. There's some strong guys. I miss my gym a lot and I remember I didn't know the last time I went in there was going to be the last time because it never occurred to me that they would shut down gyms.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will never forget that. During quarantine, I was like, well, time to go to the gym. And driving over, and it was closed. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And they're like, per law on the window. I'm just like, this is crazy. But, you know, I worked out at an old school gym. It was like Rocky.
Yeah.
You know, there were 3 types of people there. There were boxers. There were pros that worked out there. They had the best power lifters in the state, like all the best guys, like as far as like setting the records. One guy who trained me was like the state record holder and the bench and all this shit. And then there were guys like me who kind of operated in both worlds.
Sure.
You know, and I never did. I like heavy weight, but I like making weight fly.
Sure.
So instead of putting, you know, 450 for 2 reps on the hex, I want to put 225 on there and make that shit go for like 15. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like that. So I'm like a mid-weight kind of guy. Like, let's do some compound lifting. And there were a lot of guys in there who love doing that. And I just keep on hearing the theme. But, you know, you said something similar about that house that you worked out in, or whatever it was.
Yeah. Man's World Gym.
Where, you go in there and everybody's from something different.
Yes.
And you know what? You can have all these problems in society going on. This is a beautiful thing about gyms.
Yep.
All these different groups of people fighting with each other, shit going on, problems everywhere. But you go in there and the hedge fund guy is the same as the literal trash guy.
Yep.
You know, I'm the same as some 65-year-old in there who somehow still puts 185 up 10 times on the bench. And like we're all friends, you know, and we don't care where everyone else is leaving to afterwards. But there's a respect that happens where when you see people in there, and you know they're not like your 15-minute guy. They're in there, and there weren't any guys like that in there. They're in there and they're working, you know. And by the way, that's great motivation too. Like, you're doing that for the right reasons.
Yeah,
like,
no doubt.
Now he's 45-minute Tim or whatever. But like
now he's actually in my group.
Well, there you go. So you got him there.
Working his tail off.
You got him there.
Yeah.
But that environment, people respond to that, and you learn a lot about a person. You know, like I would go, the guys who I ended up, you know, talking business with or doing things because I respected how they worked. My friend Rich is legitimately, I mean, the guy retired when he was 41 because he was a hedge fund guy, and he got bored after like 10 months and went right back. But, you know, you would never know it.
Yeah.
And this guy's tactical.
Yes.
And so I would see him go, nicest guy, and you could talk to him. He's very, very by the book and whatever. But I would see him like in there, almost like meditating between sets. And this dude, I'm telling you, he hasn't had a carb in 30 years. Like he looks, he's 50, he's 57, maybe 58. I don't even know if I'm adding years to him. He doesn't look it. He looks like he's like 40, decked. Like his arms are like huge. Mine are getting small now, but you know, and every single thing is diabolical. And so I would watch him for a few months and chit chat here and there before I ever knew what he did. And I knew, I'm like, this dude is like that in his job. I want to know what he does. Turns out he ends up, you know, I'm not in the markets anymore, but that was my go-to guy. He's the best trader I've ever seen. When I had Raj in here, Rich used to trade with Raj back in the day. You know, he took orders from celebrities on the phone in the 80s, you know, to clear their stuff. And I'm like, but he's always been like this too. So he learned that accountability doing this. And every day, no matter what, he's in there, he's up at 4 a.m., he's in the office by 5:30, you know, and trading in the market all day. And when 4 o'clock comes, because the market's closed, boom, now he's going to the gym and he's getting his 2 hours in. And there's a plan. You know, it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. And the discipline thing keeps coming up. But I just, you know, bringing people together and learning about people and making everyone a part of the same thing is a huge, huge upside to gyms.
And I think just the whole thing of just mental health.
Yeah, let's go back to that because we got off that.
I mean, it's what gyms do for you mental health wise is amazing. You know, it's from a self-esteem wise, from, you know, the way it makes certain things in your body change. You know what I mean? When you're stressed, you know, it gets rid of the stress hormones and it gives you the good hormones.
Yes.
And that's really what it's about. It's about feeling good. And listen, every human being, whether you're an adult, you're a kid in school, needs something, an outlet to feel good about themselves. And, you know, they could have broke up with their girlfriend. You know, it could be vice versa. And by the way, we're actually doing a much better job with getting females in the weight room. You know, we have about 5 or 6 of them in there. We changed it. I requested to have some of the equipment changed around to be more female oriented instead of just being power racks for football players. Which it's been great because we finally got a cable crossover machine which baseball players can use and stuff like that. So the goal, obviously, in the next year or two is to increase females to about 15%. I mean, we're about 3 or 4% in there right now. You know, I want to get them to about 15%. And that's where I talk to them all the time, you know, when they're in there. Like, you know, hey, how you doing? You look great. I'm glad you're in here. You know, tell a friend. Bring another girl in. You know, come with a girl. Or bring a bunch of them in, you know, to build it from that side. I will tell you this. We are around 50 kids after school. And the gym is not big enough. And going back to the support that I get and I think the students get, they're going to knock the wall through and we're going to expand it double the size.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's already in the works. And we're going to have all the deadlift pits on the other side. We're going to have bicycles, treadmills, and we're going to have ropes on that side and maybe one more to open it up on this, because right now so many people are deadlifting in this smaller area and people are trying to do, you know, dumbbell benching and it's really jammed up right now. And
you're gonna get heavy bags in there too?
Oh, we got them in my basement and I took mine in for a little while. That would be really cool.
Greatest thing ever.
That would be great.
That was the best discovery of my life.
My son hits it every night.
Oh,
he's been doing it now for a couple of years.
Boxing is you want to talk about getting out stress? Holy shit! Go hit a bag for 12 rounds, 3 minutes 15 seconds a round in an hour. You'll be all right.
Yeah.
It's like what's the other one, like where people scream in their pillow? It's like getting to scream in your pillow, but you know you're working out too, and you're not hitting somebody. You're hitting a bag. You know that's very, very important. But very, very cool stuff. I do want to get back to that mental health point, though, as I said, because we started talking about the phone, and that's how we got here, because we started with that. And you said that a lot of kids are having, you know, the phone is an enemy and in that way, because now they're just on it all day, and they're more secluded than ever, even in school, you know, because they're there's regulations and rules, and they're separate from people. You said they couldn't even have lunch together for a while.
We couldn't have lunch.
That's just fucking
because of social distancing. Because remember, I think it was 6 foot at the time, and so when you start measuring all that out,
good luck.
You can't have
with kids.
You can't have kids eating lunch then at that point.
Yeah,
it's.
So what kinds of things, like what patterns, are you seeing? Because like I read about it, and I read you read anecdotal things, and then you read things that also have some hard data.
Yeah.
I try to look more at the hard data stuff rather than someone putting out an angry tweet. But I recognize when you can match up those tweets with the data, okay, we're on to something. But what kinds of things have you been seeing, like with some of the kids you work with, that's really been a huge change in the last 2 years?
I just think their ability to cope with stress now. I think that's the big thing, because... And that goes back to they're coping through this, and this doesn't help you cope through this, right? And then I think the other thing is,
you're pointing at the phone, by the way, for people listening.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think, with going through a phone, that's not how you solve issues or problems in your life. You can't use the phone to do that, right? And then not being able to see people or be around people, because you were secluded for so long. I think that is some of the main causes of why they're not able to cope now, because they haven't had the ability to learn through, all right, me and you got an issue. We got to work this out. Otherwise, we're not going to be friends no more. No, instead, they text back and forth, and you know what happens with text, and it gets worse. Yeah. Right? It doesn't get better.
Oh, you get misread through text.
Yeah, and it doesn't get better.
Always. Yeah.
So whereas me and you, if we had a problem in school, we're going to meet up, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to work it out. When they're not in school or the pandemic hit, they're doing everything through there, and that's why cyberbullying is increased more too. That's a whole nother piece to this whole
during the pandemic. You've seen
during the pandemic, as well as I think just in general across schools, with the ability to use phones and all these Snapchats and all that. And, there's no accountability when you say stuff now, because you're not seeing somebody's emotions or feelings. You just send it through a box, right? Yeah. Which is a phone. And you're not accountable for it, because some of the stuff, they don't know whether it's you or not, right? They make fake accounts. There's all these little issues that you have to deal with in a school system. Like, we've really... the amount of work and the things we have to do as administrators, as teachers, is enormous now. They've kind of pushed the plate over to us and said, yeah, you handle that. Oh, the family's not doing well. You make sure you help that family out. The grades aren't good. Make sure of that. By the way, they're having mental health problems. Make sure you take care of that. Oh, by the way, on weekends when there's bullying, you're responsible for that too. We're responsible for when harassment, intimidation happens on a weekend. And online. Yeah. We got to handle it. So, you're handling it either a Monday morning, Friday afternoon, or maybe it gets to the point where it gets to an administrator somehow.
It has to be reported to you, obviously.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we wear a lot of hats that we didn't wear in years past. And, it's, I would say that, it pushes you away from the educational part of it too. Really, the main goal is to educate, and I just think the agencies around supporting the schools need to do a better job.
Like who?
I would say there's not a lot of resources. Like, there's a lot of paper that has, contact this person, and then you contact that person, and by the way, they refer you to this person, and that person doesn't pick up, but then they want you to ask that person. You get a lot of that, especially when something drastic happens. You know what I mean? Where it could be a custody case, could be some, the ball just keeps rolling, and you're just like, what's going on here?
It's our cover your ass society.
Yeah.
People do something to make it look like they're doing something, to say that they did something, and there's not really an actual, how does this work? Yeah. How is this going to help? Yeah. What problem? People aren't solving problems. They're using a square peg and putting it in a round hole and shoving it in there. Yeah. And so it doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah. To hear something like that. I think it's negative though that you have to then all the resources your office has to put into it, like that's not even feasible. Like you're trying to conquer a country every day, pretty much.
Yeah. And what I will say is, you know, and I don't want to take credit for all the things I do. I mean, listen, I do some good things, but the guidance department is, the amount of work guidance counselors do is amazing. Their job is to do college prep, right? Prepare you to get in college and be successful in college. Your grades, your class, scheduling your classes, and then mental health issues, boyfriend issues, family issues, sports issues, you name it. Like, that's a lot of hats to wear in a short amount of time to get it done, you know? And maybe have, 150 kids on your caseload, or maybe on Kingsway, it might even be more. And maybe they have a couple hundred kids on a counselor's caseload. That's a lot of work.
Have you seen a decrease in, and this is two questions kind of, in kids reaching out to your resources for help, and also in being able to identify things yourself, because there's less, it's a more controlled environment. It's not an open school per se. You can't see as many things.
I would say kids are more willing to reach out now than they have in the past.
That's good.
To be honest, yeah. I think they understand. I think they do understand there's help, where they could at least get led to the right avenues to find help. I don't think they're scared to let people know that they have issues, to be honest. I think they're not afraid to say, hey, I have anxiety, or I'm depressed, which is that barrier you don't want, because that's where things can go really bad. So I think from that standpoint that we are making, headway, whereas in other areas we're not, not so much our school, but outside agencies and stuff like that, and collaborating where money goes and stuff like that. I going back to the whole mental health thing, we don't spend really any money in mental health in this country. It's crazy to think about that. For instance, going back to me being a child or adolescent, I was the only one. And so there was a wait list of 100 people waiting to get on my caseload.
Oh, wow. You're talking about back when you were...
Yeah, when I was a therapist, right? So why is there not another child adolescent therapist, right? But the pay's not great. The pay's really minimal. You probably make more at Amazon.
Oh, for sure.
Right?
For sure.
And, it doesn't make sense to me if we're having problems with youth, which then transitions into adulthood.
Yes.
Wouldn't you want to deal with it early? Be proactive, not reactive. You know what I mean?
We're not built like that.
No,
as a
right?
society.
And attack it at a younger age and spend money at the younger ages. And I mean, listen, that's why you have these problems with shootings, and all these things tie into this mental health thing.
Yes. I see that kid. You saw that one a few months ago. The Ethan kid out in Michigan, the parents and all that. Yeah. Kid's 15 years old. Yeah. Now I will say this: they were talking about trying him as an adult. Yeah. I think that's anti-constitutional. He's 15 years old. His balls haven't. Maybe they've dropped. He didn't look like he was in the weight room. So, he's probably behind the curve. Yeah. But I see that, and of course that's awful. And it's a monstrous thing to do. But I don't know if you saw, he had a YouTube channel when he was a kid.
Oh, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't.
And he hadn't posted on it in years. Yeah. But it was scary. You go watch videos. They're from 5 years ago when he was 10 years old. Mm-hmm. Just a cute little normal kid. Yeah. That's not a long time. Yeah. And that the same kid went in and blew people away with a gun. And you look at his other social media and the signs were all there. Yeah. They were all there. Yeah. And it's like, okay, why are we still letting something, this one was obvious. Yes. Why are we letting this happen? And then when it happens, okay, we're all mad. We should be. Kids died. This is a huge problem. Sure. But why are we not taking those proactive measures, at least from what I can see? Sure. And also, why are we not trying to figure out exactly how this case happened and talk with him. I mean, he's 15. He's got his whole life in front of him. He's going to have to pay some time here. But like, this isn't someone, they're not going to end up trying him as an adult, I'm sure. This is someone who's eventually going to be in society again. Yeah. So let's figure out how when he's in society again, he's going to be a normal kid like he was 5 years ago, as an adult.
I think we need to do a better job of understanding why they're doing the things they're doing. I mean, that's more important than anything. All right, so where did it go wrong? And how do we attack that part of it and change that? I don't know a lot about that case, but, it frightens me every day because, you just, sometimes you don't know, like from a standpoint of where we're sitting, maybe a parent might know, but we don't know, but we're trying to just make sure our school's safe. That's first and foremost.
Have you ever had a close call?
No.
That's great.
No.
Sad, I got to say that's great, but that's great.
Like I said, I mean, just obviously being in that system, being in that environment when you hear that, because, you know how close everybody is. Teachers are close to the students. Students are close to the teachers. Administrators are close to everybody. Like, that's a family. That's like one of your family members passing away. That's really traumatic. And so you pray that those type of things never happen again, which, obviously, we haven't found an answer yet,
Yeah, that's got to get figured out because it's just, there's you get the internet obviously isn't great with copycatting and stuff like that. But back when Columbine happened, I was too young to understand what went on. I think I was like 3 or something like that. But, that, as far as I know, that was like the first.
Yeah.
So we went, call it of modern schooling since World War II. We went, call it 50 years without ever having this happen.
Yeah.
And then it did. And now it happens a lot.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's more than copycatting. Yeah. There's something in the water going on here where, you don't just wake up one day and go, I'm going to blow everyone away. There is a process that gets you there. I don't know what it looks like, thank God. But at the same time, I'm not sitting in a seat like yours, but if I was, I want to know what that looks like. Try to imagine it.
Well, and that goes back to mental health. So I don't know these situations. I don't know what these individuals were doing. I don't know if they needed counseling. I don't know if they asked for counseling. But if they did, it's the accessibility to it is not easy. So my point is, we need to spend more money in child adolescent therapy or therapists. So when a kid like that has a problem, you can automatically make a phone call and get them appointments. The accessibility it's delayed. I was involved in it. I know. And it's disturbing when, I got to have, clients every other week because I need to get more people onto my caseload. Because if I had everybody on a week, now my wait list isn't 100, it's maybe 150, 170. Like, so think about 100 kids on the caseload on the wait list. Like, where are they going? They're getting dropped back into society with the same issues that are not being addressed.
And in their mind, no one cared enough to talk about it.
Yep. So, I personally think they should invest. Maybe they should invest in schools in having 2 therapists. That's all they do. They do therapy. They don't do anything else. They don't do college prep. They don't do this. They don't do that. They don't coach. That's what they do. They're in a separate way, or I don't know. There's just got to be a better option.
That's a good start.
But that comes down to money. And guess what? Then that means that and I think that should be supplemented by the government, not by the town. You know what I mean? Because then that's just more money to the town's got to come up with, and that's what it comes
Something's got to be taken.
And taxes got to go. Like,
it's,
I think at some point the federal government needs to address it and needs to put some money into it.
Yeah, it makes you wonder but then again, it's government. It's just bureaucratic. There's so many people, so many opinions that shit takes forever to get done if it does at all. But one thing I did want to ask you about before we got out of here, because we've been talking a while now, but you had mentioned you do interface with the youngest kids as well. Now, a lot of the programs you're talking about, you're doing with more high schoolers and some middle schoolers. But, when you talk about those kindergartners, those first graders, those second graders, we've had a long enough time now in this pandemic that we are seeing time-long studies come out to where we can see clear data that says, whoa, problem with X, Y, or Z. And one of the things we've been seeing that we've talked about a little bit today in other contexts was that whole issue with communication. These kids who are the youngest, even pre-K, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, we're seeing, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's significant. We're seeing significant rises in speech impediments. We're seeing an inability to have basic back and forth listening and talking. We're seeing, I think they also, and I'd have to check this, but there's data on like eye contact or something. I'm not even sure how you get data on that. But, even the anecdotal stuff from psychiatrists and stuff talking about that. How much are you paying attention to that, and have you personally in your seat seen a big change down there?
So me personally, I have not been down to that level much at all in the last year. I've been more focused on the middle school and high school, but the counselors down in each elementary school have dealt with that. I don't have, to be honest, I don't have any data or just conversations, just that sort of things that you're talking about that are going to be an issue probably for a while, because you're going to take the mask off and it's not going to just cure itself overnight. Like, you're not going to go like that, So I can't really talk too much at length on that because it's one of those things that I haven't really dealt with. But I mean, those conversations have been had, with the counselors in the lower end schools, the elementary schools, I should say.
Yeah, we're going to be seeing.
It'd be interesting. It'll be interesting to see, not only that, I'd like to see a 4-year study on where these kids are at from an academic standpoint. You know what I mean? That'll be interesting. 4 years out, where, if you were in first grade, now you're in fifth grade, what do your grades look like? How are you responding to this? How's your English? How's, all those little things, was it worth it?
When you look at the numbers at the end, whenever we can determine that 10, 20 years from now. Yeah. Let's just say on one metric of a certain type of test score across the entire population of 100 million kids, whatever it is. Yeah. We see that the numbers for students of the same ages across the board 10 years ago, so at that point maybe like 2018, 2019, was 85. Yeah. And now we look across the board and we see 79. That's a 6-point difference to a lot of people when they look at it and they go, well, that's not too bad. You can recover from that. Extrapolate that across an entire society of 100 million of the next generation who are going to be coming into the country across everything, from the private sector to the public sector. And now you have lost 6% of intellectual output, to say nothing of that doesn't even measure emotional output and emotional intelligence. Let me tell you, some of the best businessmen I know probably got a fucking D in school, right? Because they're great with people. They learn how to figure it out. Compare that to other places that didn't treat their kids like this. Same scores. Yeah. That's going to be a reckoning moment.
Yeah. Will anybody ever be accountable for it? That's the problem.
Cynically, no.
That's what really makes me sick to my stomach, because the majority of these people making these decisions know this is wrong. Yep. They know it. And for political gain or political power, they go and do it. I mean, we're sinking to an all-time low with the things we do now because of power and politics. And I shake my head on it daily. And I was never a political person, ever. Never. And, my mom raised me as a Democrat, but I don't know how much I believe either side. Yeah. I really don't. And I just see how much it's affecting our society in general, because I see it from an everyday basis, from the school system to somebody that's in a gym, to somebody that coaches college soccer, to somebody that's a father. And what I can tell you as an American, I know what's going on is wrong in so many ways. And I'm just like, wow. Like I say to my kids, I said, good luck, because this is all going to fall apart at some point. You're gonna the chips have to be cashed in at some point. So it's a scary time. It's a scary time we're living, and the way we do things, and
Look, everyone has to make the best of it, and you can. That's the thing. You can only control what you can control.
Yep.
You can sit there and put up a tweet, and it's not going to change anything.
Yeah. I know.
You have to. I had another guest in here, Chris Giuseppini, who was saying the same thing. It's like you have to change the life of the person in front of you.
Yep.
And that's to start with you first. And it's like that's what you can do. So I think it's a pretty great thing what you're doing, and you're having an effect on a large population, like an entire community, basically. Yeah. And so love hearing about that. This was a really good conversation, because I haven't had someone in here who's working with the kids, and that is something that in my DMs especially, but even on public comments, just even when it's mentioned in here with someone else, people have an opinion on it, and they're asking about it, because I don't have kids, but a lot of people do. Yeah. And a lot of people who don't have kids are even curious about it, because it's been 2 years. And so, I don't know how we come out of it, but, keep doing what you're doing.
Well, thank you.
It's a great thing.
Yeah. Appreciate it.
And thank you for coming in.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. We'll do it again sometime, Doc.
Yep.
Everybody else, you know what it is. Give it a thought. Get back to it. Peace.